One piece, I will destroy Marijoa. After traveling through time and space and becoming a slave of Marijoa, Ivan's heart was filled with rage for revenge. The navy aided the tyrant, the pirates fought on their own, and the revolutionary army was in a state of disarray. In that case, let me change all that. Awaken the special skill system and use the sky-shaking star to bombard Marijoa at the beginning. From now on, let the world government feel the pain. Chapter 1. Marijoa, the gathering place of the celestial dragons. This white city is probably the most prosperous area in the world, because it is the gathering place of the celestial dragons. However, it is not all luxurious and glamorous. This is the underground of Marijoa, a dark corner where the sun never shines. Ivan pushed the huge wheel in front of him with all his strength. The wheel was connected to a huge pillar, and the top of the pillar had gears connected to a huge machine on one side. Such a huge object cannot be pushed by Ivan alone, especially since he looks only 11 or 12 years old, still a thin child. There are many people pushing the wheel with him, and like him, they have metal collars around their necks. Ivan and all the people working here are slaves of the celestial dragons. All outsiders who have come to Marijoa will be amazed by the automated facilities here, automated roads, automated stairs, like the city of the future. But they don't know that all the power of these automated facilities comes from the push of slaves like Ivan. These wheels are extremely heavy, even if a group of people push together, they have to do their best to make it turn. Ivan's breathing was rapid, his chest was in pain as if it was about to explode, his legs were almost numb, his eyes had become unfocused, and he seemed to be about to fall down at any time. But he didn't dare to fall down. In addition to these slaves who had no human rights, there were also armed supervisors. If they were a little slower, the whip in the supervisor's hand would fall without hesitation. If they dared to resist, they would be shot directly. Every day, a large number of slaves died, either because of overwork, or because of extreme malnutrition, or because they were killed directly by the supervisor. But their deaths did not cause any ripples, and even the next day was not needed. In just a few minutes, new slaves would fill the vacancy. If you don't want to die, you can only work hard. Ivan didn't want to die. He wanted to live. Even if he had to struggle on the line between life and death every day, he would struggle. At the end of a day's work, when he was thrown back into the cramped cage, Ivan didn't even have the strength to sit up. This narrow cage was the size of a dog cage, and there was not even enough space to lie down. All Ivan could do at this moment was to lean against the edge of the cage and pant. The same panting sound could be heard from all directions. This sound would last for a while and then quickly stop. There were only a few hours of sleep a day, and no one wanted to waste it. All the muscles in his body were trembling, breathing became extremely difficult, and his heartbeat had completely lost its regularity. I'm going to die. Ivan thought as he trembled while chewing a piece of dry black bread thrown in a corner of the cage. If I continue like this, I won't live for a few more days. My body is already exhausted. According to the original body's memory, the current time is 1503 in the Haiwan calendar. Fisher Tiger will not come to cause trouble in Marijoa until 4 years later. He should not have become a slave yet. I definitely can't wait until then. Ivan was a transmigrator who had reincarnated into the body of an 11-year-old slave who died of exhaustion. Before he could figure out what was going on, he was forced to work under the gunpoint of the supervisor. It has been a whole year now. But, it has to be today. Ivan bit the bread with great effort, chewed it with difficulty, and then tried to swallow it. His throat and esophagus had become accustomed to the rough feeling of the sand-like bread. Although weak, his eyes were as sharp as a knife. All hopes are pinned here. If you can't draw the right skills, then let's just perish together. Even if I die, I must leave an indelible fear in these rubbish. He thought so. Lang lang. Suddenly, there was a sound of a cage opening. Ah! Then there was a clear girl's voice, filled with fear and pain. There was another bang, and the cage door was closed. Be happy. Tomorrow I will brand you with the mark of God, and you will officially become a member of Marijoa. In the darkness, the guard's voice was extremely amusing. Ivan felt the brand on his chest begin to hurt again. This is the mark of the celestial dragon, the hoof of the 9 sky-flying dragon, the proof of slavery, and also his greatest humiliation. Celestial dragon. World government. Ivan gnawed the bread silently. Instead of being angry, it is better to eat more and recover more physical strength. Not long after the guard left, sobbing was heard from next door. Sister, I'm scared, what will happen to us next? I want to go back, sister, I want to go back. The first sound was two suppressed cries. Mary, Sonia, don't be afraid, sister will definitely protect you. We can definitely go back. Then came a voice that tried to sound firm. Is it such a coincidence? Yvonne listened quietly to the voice coming from next door. Three sisters, Mary, Sonia. It can only be the three sisters of the Empress, right? Speaking of which, they were indeed sold to Marijoa by human traffickers this year. Haven't they had time to be branded with the mark of the celestial dragons? However, Yvonne had no intention of talking to the three sisters, but just listened quietly to the eldest sister's whispered comfort to the two younger sisters. The three sisters of the Empress now have no fighting power and can't help at all. The next lottery is the most important. Before that, try to conserve your energy. Yvonne swallowed the whole piece of bread with great effort, and took a sip of the water on the side. The water from somewhere gave off a strange smell, but it could finally quench his thirst. System. Yvonne muttered in his heart. A panel that only he could see opened in front of him. Name, Yvonne. Age, 12. Skill extracted, Heavenly Obstacle Star. Extraction cooling time, 02:45:32. As a transmigrator, Yvonne has a system. His system is called the stunt system. It has a very simple function. You can draw a lottery every year, and the skills drawn are all from the stunts of various characters in the universe. There are two ways to use the skills you draw. One is to use it directly, completely replicating the power of the skill owner when launching the move, but this method of use will have a cooling time, the length of which is based on the difference between your own strength and the strength of the skill owner. During the cooling period, the skill cannot be used. The second way to use it is to launch it with your own strength, and the power is based on your own ability, but there is no cooling time. When he crossed over a year ago, he drew the lottery for the first time, and he drew the stunt from Uchiha Madara in the Naruto world, the Heavenly Aiding Star. This is a very powerful skill. Once used, it will definitely cause great damage to Marijoa. But Yvonne himself might also be affected by this overrange move. Even if he is not affected, it is very difficult to escape. So Yvonne decided to wait until the next skill extraction. That is this time. If I don't draw the right skill, then I'll just burn myself together. Anyway, this body can't hold on for much longer, and I definitely won't be able to wait for the next draw. So, I can only activate the Heavenly Star Shock. Let the Celestial Dragons feel the pain too. There are still more than 2 hours left, and it's going to be fast. Yvonne leaned against the cage. He wanted to take a nap to recover his strength. But he was so excited that he couldn't fall asleep at all. He just watched the countdown on the panel return to 0 bit by bit. Ding! Cooling is over, the lottery has started, do you want to draw a new skill? Yvonne paused, then took a deep breath. Yes. He confirmed. Special Skills Extraction. Ding! The character has been locked. Template Character, Holy Lord. Ding! Skills confirmed. Skill, Summoning the Ghost Army. Yvonne was stunned. Then, his shoulders suddenly began to tremble. Ha 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 ha. A loud laugh rang out in the darkness. Yvonne hadn't laughed for a long time, so he felt extremely happy at this moment. Because he was free. Chapter 2. The hearty laughter echoed in the darkness, instantly waking up a group of slaves who had fallen asleep. In the cage next door, the three sisters who were originally hugging each other and crying silently held their breath. Are you crazy? In the darkness, the black-haired girl hugged her two sisters and thought so. Then she felt a little depressed. If she stayed in such an environment all the time, she would definitely go crazy, right? What's going on? Who is laughing? The laughter attracted two guards, who came over with lanterns in hand, looking aggressive. What are you crazy about? The slaves around were silent, the dim light shone on them, and numb faces emerged. They didn't care why someone was laughing, nor did they care what would happen next. The guards walked to Ivan's cage, raised the lamp, and let the light illuminate Yvonne in the cage. One of them sneered, "It's a little devil, is he crazy? Stop laughing, kid." A guard kicked the cage, and his other hand had already pulled out a knife. "Get out, if you don't want to live, then let me give you a quick death." He was not kidding. These slaves were no different from ants. If there were fewer of them, the big shots above would not care at all. Just for the crime of disturbing them, this kid could be sentenced to death. In the cage next door, unlike the numb slaves, Hancock, who had just arrived at Marijoa, was full of fear in her heart, but she was still paying attention to this side carefully. She looked at Yvonne through 2 layers of cages. He looked about the same age as her, so skinny, and as scary as a skeleton. What would happen to him? Would he be killed? Ivan's laughter gradually stopped, and then he coughed violently. His body was too weak, even laughing had become a luxury. Enjoy it. Ivan's violent coughing made his body twitch, but he laughed with tears. It's time to enjoy it. After a year of depression, if he didn't enjoy it again, he would really go crazy. Turning on the light, he looked at the 2 people outside the cage. Neither of them was a stranger. One of them had whipped him more than 10 times, and now he still had scars from that time on his body. The other had once kicked his ribs and broke them, and now he still felt a dull pain occasionally. Go to hell. Yvonne said. Before the 2 people outside the cage could react, the guard holding the lantern behind them suddenly groaned and dropped the lantern in his hand, making the light instantly mottled. What's going on? The guard with the knife turned around and widened his eyes. A dark weirdo who came out of nowhere covered his colleague's mouth from behind, and then stabbed him in the chest with a knife. Before he could say anything, he found that his feet were grabbed. Looking down, an equally dark guy emerged from the shadows with half of his body and grabbed his legs. He was about to open his mouth to shout, but a hand stretched out from behind, covered his mouth, and then stabbed him in the chest from behind. The 2 corpses fell softly to the ground, but they were still twitching reflexively. How fragile! The guards who were usually arrogant and had the power of life and death over the slaves, now fell here like dead dogs. Yvonne looked at the 3 black ninjas kneeling outside the cage, and whispered, "Go and deal with the other guards, and bring the collars and the keys to the cages. There are many slaves imprisoned here, divided into many areas, each area is guarded by about 6 or 7 guards." The 3 ninjas nodded slightly and disappeared into the shadows. Really useful. Yvonne leaned against the cage. The Ghost Shadow Corps, although their combat effectiveness is poor, is completely sufficient to deal with these guards who are bullying others. The most important thing is that they can freely shuttle through the shadows and can easily take me out of Marijoa. It's just that they need to continue to consume physical strength after being summoned. Just summoning 3 of them, now my forehead is sweating. In the cage next door, Hancock looked at Yvonne in shock. Where did this guy come from? A black warrior? A person with special abilities? He wants to escape? A fire of hope instantly ignited in Hancock's heart. But unlike her, the slaves around her didn't shout out loud, but just watched coldly without saying a word. A few soft groans were heard in the darkness, and then silence returned quickly. A few seconds later, a black shadow ninja appeared outside Ivan's cage, took out the key to open the door of Ivan's cage, then knelt on one knee and handed him a bunch of keys. Yvonne struggled to climb out of the cage and stood up unsteadily. The piece of bread he had eaten before played a role, allowing this body to still have the power to move. Open my collar. Yvonne looked up. The ninja immediately stood up, tried the keys one by one, and soon opened Ivan's collar. As the collar came off, Yvonne felt a long-lost sense of relief. A warm current surged in Ivan's chest, surging upwards and making his nose a little sour. Finally, he got rid of his status as a livestock. The collar contained a bomb that could explode at any time. It was a symbol of slavery. We can go now. Yvonne looked around. But before that, there are 2 things to do. I'm leaving, he said calmly. Is there anyone who wants to go with me? But there was silence, deathly silence. It was not until a few seconds later that a small voice finally sounded. Me, we'll go with you. Please, take us away with you. Hancock was extremely anxious and rushed to the side of the cage. His dirty little face was deformed by the bars. Take us away with you. Okay. Yvonne nodded gently. Soon, the ninja released the 3 sisters and opened their collars. Thank you, thank you. You are such a good person. I will definitely repay you after we leave. The dirty little girl said to Yvonne like a machine gun. Yvonne looked at her. The future world's most beautiful girl is still a little kid who has not grown up yet. She is still dirty and looks only slightly better than him, a senior slave. The 2 younger sisters look cleaner and hide behind their elder sister in fear. We'll talk later. Yvonne nodded gently. Then someone else spoke up, we can't run away. This is Marijoa. Where can we run to? We are slaves of the celestial dragons. Who dares to protect us? There is no place for us in the whole world. Really? Yvonne nodded gently. Not only their bodies, but also their spirits have been completely enslaved. Just like the rescued Kurla, even though their bodies are free, their minds are still slaves, and they dare not resist at all. If they can't make a big fuss like Fisher Tiger did and force them to escape, they dare not do anything. Good luck to you. Yvonne said. Anyway, the people who really wanted to take him away had already gone. Let's go. He said. 3 ninjas appeared, 1 holding Yvonne, 2 holding the 3 sisters, and then they sank into the shadows at the same time. In the silence, someone suddenly said, he will die. Yes, I Euro trademark am dead. How can I escape from the control of the gods? Stop making noise, go to sleep, we have to go to work later. So, everything returned to silence. In a corner of the white town of Marijoa, on the top of a building, in the shadows, the ninja emerged with Yvonne. Yvonne suddenly felt a glare, but he was unwilling to close his eyes. He raised his head. Marijoa was at the top of the red earth continent, even in the clouds. Above was the clear sky, cloudless and azure. Is it daytime now? Yvonne faced the sun, the strong sunlight stung his eyes and he couldn't help but shed tears. It's been a long time since I last saw the Sunday. He finally lowered his head slowly, and when the dazzling sunlight ended, he staggered forward and walked to the railing on the roof. What appeared in front of him was a spectacular white town. Is this the gathering place of the celestial dragons? Yvonne muttered to himself, now, it's time for you to feel the pain. He made 3 seals with his hands in front of his chest. The sky is shaking with stars. The next moment, the sky over Marijoa suddenly turned dark. Chapter 3. The skill has been activated. If used directly, it will be like Uchiha Madara descending here, launching a meteorite crash that will cause a huge collision between heaven and earth. Yvonne did not hesitate at all, and directly let the ninja take him into the shadows. Even if he was only affected by the aftermath of the meteorite fall, his body full of holes would probably become pieces in an instant. Yvonne left, but the changes in Marijoa have just begun. A huge meteorite appeared in the sky, casting a shadow from the sky like covering the sky and the sun. Soon, the meteorite took shape and began to fall under the pull of gravity. The speed began to soar in the blink of an eye, and the whistling wind suddenly arose. It was at this time that the people below finally realized that something was wrong. Outside the residence of the Celestial Dragons, the government center, Pangu City. The office of the 5 elders, between power. What is that? The 5 elders, wearing burgundy suits, stood in front of the French window, staring at the huge meteorite falling in the sky not far away in disbelief. Meteorite? How could it appear so suddenly? Moreover, a huge meteorite with a diameter of hundreds of meters. How could it appear in the sky silently and only be discovered now? Damn it, he exclaimed. It was too late to stop them at this distance. The gathering place of the celestial dragons. Hey! What is that? A celestial dragon finally discovered the visitor from the sky. Meteorite. The meteorite is falling. Damn it! It just happened to fall on Marijoa. Run, run! The meteorite doesn't care about the identity of the Tianlong people. It will only bring death to everyone here equally, whether he is a Tianlong or a slave. The arrogant Tianlong people wished they had 2 more legs and wanted to escape from the coverage of the meteorite. However, most of the Tianlong people were pampered, fat and weak, and they were out of breath after running a few steps. But at least they still had slaves. Quick! You lowly scum! Take me with you and run! The Tianlongs rode on the slaves' backs, waving their whips in fear. The slaves crawling on the ground looked up at the falling meteorites, and while running away subconsciously, a look of satisfaction appeared in their eyes. They were finally free. Moreover, these guys, the Tianlongs, will also be buried with them. God, have you finally heard my prayers? However, at this moment, a figure leaped into the air. Just a meteorite. With an arrogant low shout, a brilliant slash soared into the sky. The meteorite, which was hundreds of meters in size, was split into 2 in an instant. The Tianlong people were instantly overjoyed. It's Saint Gellinger. The Knights of God are taking action. There are also masters among the celestial dragons. In the sky, the middle-aged man called Gellinger laughed wantonly, swung his sword casually, and slashed, and the meteorite was cut into huge pieces of stone. Although it will still cause considerable damage, the degree will be greatly reduced after all. Pangu City. The 5 elders shouted in horror, Gellinger. Be careful. Gellinger found something wrong. He narrowed his eyes and looked up through the cracks in the broken meteorite. What? There is another one. There is another meteorite. This meteorite blocked my view and I couldn't see it. There is an even bigger meteorite above. A real behemoth with a diameter of more than 1,000 meters. Damn it! Gellinger's face changed drastically, and he swung his sword vigorously. He slashed and slashed, but because of the obstruction of the meteorite debris below, even if the slash landed on the meteorite above, it would only leave a deep mark and could not cut it off. After this momentary opportunity, the meteorite was already in front of him. Gellinger gritted his teeth. He didn't want to use his body to bear the power of the falling behemoth. So, he pulled back and stepped on the air to retreat rapidly. As a result, the Tianlong people on the ground could only look up and stare blankly at the countless stones of various sizes falling like a rainstorm. And above the stones, the meteorites that covered the sky and the sun were unstoppable. Boom! A huge sphere with a diameter of more than 1,000 meters fell on Marijoa. Everything below was crushed, and the earth collapsed in an instant. Even the solid red soil continent could not withstand such devastation. The terrifying shock wave destroyed everything in its path, shattering the earth and breaking the rock layers. The shock wave brought by the impact was unstoppable, sweeping up the sky with smoke and dust, sweeping across the entire Tianlong gathering place in an instant, and engulfing the entire Marijoa after a few breaths. Then there was a strong earthquake, and the ground within dozens of kilometers nearby was shaking continuously. Damn it! Inside Pangu City, the 5 elders in burgundy suits were furious. What the hell is going on? Who did this? This certainly couldn't be a natural phenomenon. A person with special abilities, it must be someone with special abilities. While Marijoa was smashed to pieces, Yvonne was already traveling through the shadows under the escort of the Black Shadow Ninja. This is a dark world, the back of the world, a world of shadows. In the absence of air mages, only Black Shadow Ninjas can travel freely through it. Yvonne was held in the arms of a ninja, and the other 2 ninjas carried the 3 sisters and moved forward in the void. Hancock had been carefully observing Yvonne. She didn't know where the boy had gone when he left just now, nor did she know where he was now. Where are we heading now? Hancock summoned up his courage. Sabayati Archipelago. Yvonne said lightly, but I don't know which direction it is in, let's go find someone to ask for directions. Hancock nodded pretentiously, but in fact she didn't even know where the Sabayati Archipelago was. She hesitated, can you send us back to 9 Snake Island? It was the first time she left 9 Snake Island when she was captured by human traffickers. She knew nothing about the outside world, and the only one she could rely on was the young man she met for the first time. After she finished speaking, Hancock felt that her request was a bit presumptuous. She was not the willful and arrogant empress in the future, but just a lively girl. So she hurriedly said, I am Hancock, from 9 Snake Island. His Majesty the Emperor and the sisters of the 9 Snake Pirates all love me very much. If you can send us back, they will definitely repay you well. Okay. Yvonne nodded without any hesitation. Is it really possible? Hancock was pleasantly surprised. Is this boy so easy to talk to? Yvonne glanced at her. Originally, I went to the Sabayati Archipelago to send you back, even if you didn't speak. Yvonne already had a simple plan in his mind. Today's launch of the sky-shaking star is just the beginning, not the end. Before the celestial dragons are completely wiped out and the world government is completely overthrown, the humiliation he has suffered cannot be washed away. In order to achieve this goal, he must become stronger. Even if there is a system to rely on, it is also necessary to be strong. In this world, if you want to become strong, you can do without a devil fruit, but you cannot do without domineering. The 9 Snakes Island happens to be a holy place for practicing domineering. Almost all of the 9 Snakes warriors have mastered domineering. Even the use of advanced armed colors is also popular. There is no more suitable place to practice domineering than there. Yvonne thought about it for a while and said, anyway, I have nowhere else to go. Hancock nodded repeatedly, then let's go to 9 Snakes. But sister, the second sister, the green-haired, round-faced Sandasonia, who had been silent the whole time, whispered, men are not allowed to land on Nine Snake Island. Who cares? Hancock acted as if he didn't care. She was a little stuck and subconsciously glanced at Ivan. She didn't know the boy's name yet. Ivan. Ivan's lips moved slightly. Ivan. Hancock nodded vigorously, and then said loudly, Ivan is our savior. The two sisters didn't dare to talk back to their elder sister. Don't worry, Ivan. Hancock patted her flat chest and said confidently, it will be fine. After escaping from danger, she quickly returned to her original lively appearance. But how do we get back to the Nine Snake Island? The third sister, the orange-haired Marigold, who had not become fat from eating Lux hot pot, asked cautiously, Brother Ivan, do you know the location of the 9 snakes? Forward. Hancock's face froze instantly. Not to mention Ivan, she didn't know where she was, she only knew that she was in the doldrums. Let's go to the Sabayati archipelago first. Ivan just said calmly. The former emperor of Amazon Lily is there now. Chapter 4. Marijoa was in ruins. The gathering place of the celestial dragons was completely reduced to ruins. There was a huge hole in the center and a stone mountain stood in the center. It was the remains of a meteorite. Dense and huge cracks spread everywhere, and there was no trace of the original prosperity. The guards and doctors who were urgently transferred shuttled through the ruins, searching and rescuing the celestial dragons who had suffered a great disaster. Wailing sounds came from all directions. The former residence of God was now in ruins. An unprecedented disaster. In a corner of the ruins, the 5 elders gathered here. The 5 elders, wearing white Taoist robes, bald heads and glasses, Isambal Vinasu Xiao Sheng said calmly, the number of Tianlong killed is in the tens of thousands. This is definitely not a natural disaster, someone must be behind this. Topman Voculi, a 5 elder star wearing a dark green suit, also bald, with 2 figure-8 mustaches, said in a serious tone, block the news, and never let the world know. Send CP0 to investigate, I want to know everything that happened in Marijoa today. Someone has to pay the price. The attack on Marijoa was not announced, but it has shocked the entire world government. Directly below Marijoa, the 2 airports on both sides of the Red Earth continent have been completely under martial law. The Navy soldiers blocked the ports and prohibited anyone from entering or leaving. The Navy, armed with live ammunition, carefully checked every ship that stopped there and searched every suspicious corner. In this case, several Navy soldiers suddenly disappeared at this airport in the first half of the Grand Line. The Navy instantly became alert and began to search the surrounding sea more frantically. But nothing was found. So the Navy began to search in more distant waters. But they couldn't find anything. Because the missing Navy soldiers went to another dimension. The direction has been confirmed. Ivan turned around and watched the bodies of several Navy soldiers gradually moving away in the darkness, and said calmly, next, we will be able to reach the Sabayati archipelago by following this direction. They did not know the direction of the Sabayati archipelago, so they kidnapped several Navy soldiers at the airport just below Marijoa. After asking them one by one, they finally determined the direction of the Sabayati archipelago. There is no magnetism on that island, and the needle cannot indicate the direction. But fortunately, it is not far from the Red Earth continent and the airport, so it can be reached by directly indicating the direction. The 3 ninjas continued to fly in the dark with the 4 people. Ivan. Hancock, who was carried by a ninja, looked at Ivan who was lying on the ninja's back with some concern, are you okay? The boy's face was pale, his forehead was covered with sweat, and his lips were bloodless. It's okay. Ivan closed his eyes and didn't move. Even when he spoke, his lips moved slightly. The summoned ninjas continued to consume his physical strength. Until now, he was almost unable to hold on. However, he had to hold on even if he couldn't. He was not the Holy Lord. If he stayed in the shadow space for a long time, he would be eroded by the shadow. Now there was a vast ocean outside, and he couldn't go out. He had to hold on until the Sabayati archipelago. After answering Hancock, Ivan stopped moving completely and tried to conserve his physical strength. Evan. Hancock looked at the quiet boy and pursed her lips gently. She knew that it takes physical strength for a person with special abilities to activate their abilities. Such a thin boy must be struggling just to maintain his abilities now. If it weren't for him and his sisters, he would definitely be much more relaxed alone. But even so, he was unwilling to give up his 3 sisters, and he said it was okay as if nothing had happened. Hancock sniffed and his eyes were a little sore. It was the first time that the girl was moved by a boy. She wanted to say, why not throw them out? But looking at her two sisters, Hancock was silent again. After all, they were dragging him down. She could only cheer for the boy silently. The elder sister didn't speak, and the two younger sisters naturally didn't dare to speak. There was silence in this dark space. Ivan's physical strength was indeed not much left, but fortunately, the Sabayati archipelago was very close to the airport. After all, this archipelago is on the edge of the Red Earth continent. You can see it by following the pointer to Fishman Island, and Fishman Island is just below Marijoa, so the distance is certainly not too far. It didn't take too long to reach the Sabayati archipelago. But Ivan was not in a hurry to come out of the shadow world. The Sabayati archipelago was not safe, and there were criminals and pirates everywhere. He vaguely remembered that Syaki Bar was in Area 13 of the Sabayati archipelago. As long as he found her, with the identities of the three Hancock sisters, he would be safe. Ivan sent a ninja out to find Area 13, then dismissed two ninjas and stayed in the shadows with the three Hancock sisters to wait. About half an hour later, the ninja came back and found Area 13. Ivan then summoned two ninjas again with great effort, and took him and the three sisters to continue moving, all the way to the shadow corresponding to Area 13. It's time to go out, Ivan thought. The three ninjas and the four people began to float up. The darkness was quietly receding, and bright light was pouring down from above. Ivan looked up, and what appeared in his sight was the lush treetops, and next to it was a huge mangrove. Trees? It's been a long time since I saw them. The vibrant green is a symbol of life. As Ivan thought about this, his body fell forward limply, and the three ninjas had already disappeared. Oh no, he relaxed a little and lost his strength. His mind became chaotic and his thinking was sluggish. However, he did not fall to the ground directly. Hancock came forward and hugged him. Thank you for your hard work, Ivan. The girl's voice sounded in his ears, leave it to me next. Ivan struggled to think, and the first thought that came to his mind was it's not a completely flat body. Then he came to his senses and couldn't help laughing. Find a bar, Hancock. Ivan said softly, a bar on the hillside, it should be nearby. Yes. Hancock nodded gently, turned around carefully, and with the help of her two sisters, she carried the boy on her back. He was so light. Even lighter than her two sisters. She could clearly feel the boy's ribs on her back. Hancock's nose was sore again. How much torture had he suffered there? Ivan, don't worry, I will protect you from now on. Hancock held the boy's legs with both hands and made up her mind. Come on, Mary, Sonia. Okay, sister. The two sisters also responded loudly. Although they had good intentions, troubles arose immediately. The three sisters had not been searching in Area 13 for long when they were stopped by a group of people. Look what I found. They are some little devils. A bald man stood in front of the four people with a grin, and behind him followed a few men with equally malicious intentions. Haha, I'm so lucky. I just happened to lose some money, so I'll use you to make up for it. Ha ha ha, boss, are you going to bully the little brat again? Behind him, a man laughed with gloating joy. Ha ha ha, even though they are just a few little ghosts, they are worth some money. The bald man slowly pulled out the rifle from his waist and pointed it at Hancock. Okay, kids, come to your uncle. Sister. Sonia and Marigold's bodies trembled instantly. They remembered the human traffickers who kidnapped them before. The horrible memories instantly made their bodies stiff. Hancock's face sank, and he looked at these guys carefully. They seemed to be just ordinary gangsters. In this case, I am enough. Hancock was full of confidence in himself. At this time, Ivan slowly raised his head from Hancock's back. Human traffickers? Human traffickers? Ivan's pupils shrank instantly. You want to send me back again? The originally chaotic thoughts were instantly filled with rage, and the invisible power suddenly bloomed from his body. You all deserve to die. A red light suddenly flashed in Ivan's eyes, and his wild spirit swept over everything in an instant. Ugh! Without even realizing what was happening, the bald man and his men behind him fainted with their eyes rolled back and foaming at the mouth. Even Sonia and Marigold were affected and fell into a coma. Only Hancock's body swayed, but she still tried to stand. She looked back in astonishment. As someone from the Nine Snakes, she certainly knew what this thing was. Ivan, this is... The domineering aura of a king. A deep male voice sounded from one side, "Young man, it seems that I was too sentimental and thought you needed help." After a moment of outburst, Ivan felt that it was difficult to open his eyes. He turned his head and saw a middle-aged man standing on a tree branch. He had yellow hair, gold-rimmed glasses, and a vertical scar on his right eye. Pluto Rayleigh. It's safe. Such a thought emerged in Ivan's mind. Then in an instant, endless fatigue surged from his body, and darkness attacked him. He only had time to whisper softly, "Hancock, kill them." Ivan lost consciousness. Chapter 5. When Ivan woke up again, he found himself lying on a bed, covered with a quilt. "How long has it been since I last lay in bed?" Ivan didn't even want to get up. So, he was indeed saved by Rayleigh, right? The bed was shaking constantly. Was he on the boat? Ivan lifted the quilt and sat up. He found that his clothes had been changed. The ragged slave clothes were replaced with loose pajamas. His body had also been washed, and the stains left over the years disappeared without a trace, and his hair became fresh. Is Rayleigh so considerate? Or is it Xiaoqi? Looking around, it was a somewhat narrow room, with only a bed and a table. There was a small round window on the wall next to the bed, and you could see the blue sea outside. Sure enough, we were on the boat? Ivan said to himself. Then the three Hancock sisters should have recognized Xiaoqi now. Are they on the boat to the 9 snakes now? This is a good thing. Even if they can't land on the 9 snakes, they can find a nearby island as a shelter like Luffy. As long as they can learn Haki, there will be no problem. If I remember correctly, I awakened the Conqueror's Haki before I fell into a coma, which was a pleasant surprise. The Conqueror's Haki is one of the most powerful forces in this sea. I don't know if the 9 snakes have a way to practice the Conqueror's Haki. But before that, I have to take care of my body first. After a year of slavery, my body has become too weak. I didn't suffer any injuries, but I was exhausted after just maintaining the Ghost Shadow Ninja for a while. Now my mind still feels a little confused. But fortunately, in this world, you only need to eat more meat to make your body stronger. Oh, and there is also a system. System. Ivan summoned the panel. Name, Ivan. Age, 12. Skills extracted, Heavenly Star, Cooling Time, 5 years, Ghost Ninja Summoning. Cooling time for extraction, 1 year. The Celestial Star is in cooling down. Although the direct use of the special skill can reproduce the power of the original user, the disadvantage is that the greater the gap in strength between oneself and the original user, the longer the cooling time. Or I am too weak, otherwise it would not be so long. I can't use this skill for 5 years. But Ivan has no regrets at all. The celestial dragons must have received the gift I gave. And more importantly, I can draw new special skills after a year. Maybe I can draw more powerful skills. It would be great if I could get a spirit bomb or Kamehameha, and directly lift the whole Marijoa in one breath. In short, before drawing new skills, work hard to become stronger. The goal for the past year is to keep healthy, exercise, and lay a foundation for future practice. I put on the shoes placed by the bed and was about to go out when the door was pushed open. Ivan. Are you awake? The girl who pushed the door open jumped over happily. You've been unconscious for a day. Are you okay? I was so worried. Fortunately, Xiaoqi said that you were just very weak. You just need to rest for a while and replenish your nutrition. Han, cook. Ivan looked at the girl in front of him. If it weren't for the familiar voice, it would be hard to identify the girl in front of him with the dirty girl before. Her skin was white and smooth, and her facial features were exquisite, like a work of art carved by a legendary sculptor, without a single flaw. Her eyes were as bright as stars, flashing with joy. Just being stared at by these moving eyes made people feel comfortable. She was wearing a red dress, lively and cute with a bit of the girl's unique playfulness, but vaguely, she had become a slender and tall adult woman. Comics and real people are indeed two different existences. When I read the comics, although I knew she was the most beautiful woman in the world, I didn't think she was much taller than other beauties in the comics. But in real life, you can tell at first sight that she is an extraordinary beauty. You must be shocked. Hancock raised her chin proudly. I am the cutest girl in the 9 snakes. Everyone likes me the most. Is the charm that makes people fall in love with you something you have from childhood? No wonder the 9 snakes pirates took a few children in their early teens to sail. They couldn't resist her pleading. But Yvonne, you are also very good looking, although you are very thin. Hancock's cheeks were slightly red, but men's bodies are really different from ours, it's amazing. Yvonne was stunned for a moment, then understood what she meant. So you were the one who gave me the bath? And what do you mean by amazing? Where are we now? Yvonne returned to the point. I killed those guys too. Rayleigh and Shakira saved us. Hancock said quickly, you won't believe it, Yvonne, I can't believe it either. Shakira is actually the former emperor of Amazon Lily. The former captain of the Nine Snakes pirates. She said she would send us back to the Nine Snakes, and now she is on the ship to the Nine Snakes. Really? I believe it because I know it. Hancock's pretty eyes looked a little confused. Yvonne, you know. I'm a little curious too, little Yvonne, how did you know we were here? Yvonne looked back and saw a woman with short black hair leaning against the door. The woman had a cigarette in her mouth and blew out a circle of her eyes. She looked quite chic and uninhibited. Xiaoqi. Hancock hurriedly introduced to Yvonne, Yvonne, this is Xiaoqi. When I was in Marijoa, I heard from a slave that he saw you. After all, you didn't even disguise yourself. Yvonne said briefly. Anyway, they couldn't go to Marijoa to verify it. Besides, considering Rayleigh's behavior of selling himself to the slave trade every now and then when he ran out of money for wine, it would be strange for him to conceal his whereabouts, right? Is that so? The woman shook her head helplessly. She was fine, but that old bastard Rayleigh was out all day, so it was normal for him to be seen. At this time, Ivan's stomach growled. Xiaoqi smiled mischievously, it seems someone is hungry. The food is ready. Hancock said quickly, Rayleigh said that Yvonne, you should be awake soon, so he prepared the food in advance. Then please. Yvonne couldn't refuse at all. The boat was moving slowly on the sea. It was a small sloop. 2 girls were steering the rudder at the bow. In the cabin, in the pocket-sized restaurant. At a table, Yvonne was feasting. The table was piled with all kinds of food, stewed meat, roasted chicken, freshly baked white bread, and calorie-rich donuts. Yvonne accepted everything and kept reaching out to grab the food and stuffing it into his mouth. How long has it been since I last ate such food? I was so moved that I almost cried. It was too empty. A weak person should never overeat like this, but in this world no one cares so much, eating can restore physical strength. Hancock sat across the table, holding her cheeks with both hands and smiling foolishly as she watched Yvonne eat heartily. Seeing the boy eating so happily, she also felt inexplicably happy. By the window, Xiaoqi, who was smoking, chuckled. Sitting at the door of the cabin, the middle-aged man who was watching Sandasonia and Marigold steer the helm while drinking slowly put down the bottle and smiled softly, it's great to be young. Xiaoqi smiled and didn't say anything. Here, Yvonne was finally full of food and wine. After all, he is not Luffy, and his life will not return. His appetite is limited. After his stomach was so full, he really couldn't eat any more. At this time, he collapsed on the chair somewhat powerlessly. Thank you very much. Yvonne tried to sit up straight and looked at Xiaoqi and Rayleigh. Xiaoqi, Rayleigh, not only saved us, but also treated us to food. Rayleigh didn't look back and said casually, it's certainly not a big deal to treat a teenager like you to a meal. As soon as Lao Lei came back, he said he had found an incredible young man. Xiaoqi smiled and said, it's really amazing, little Yvonne. Conqueror's Haki is only possessed by a handful of people, and it's even rarer to awaken it at your age. It's really rare. Yamato and Doflamingo both awakened their Conqueror's Haki at the age of 8, and Ace was a little later, at the age of 10. So Yvonne shook his head, it's nothing amazing. Indeed, compared to what you did, the Conqueror's Haki is nothing big. Rayleigh turned around and took another sip of wine. The entire world government is in a state of panic. What happened in Marijoa? The loud noise can be heard in Shampoo Land. The Sabayati archipelago is under martial law. If we don't leave quickly, there might be some trouble. Chapter 6. When Yvonne was unconscious, Hancock told Rayleigh and Shaky what she had been through. Rayleigh already knew about Ivan's background. This young man had been a slave to the celestial dragons, and had suffered inhuman torture, leaving him physically weak. It stands to reason that what happened in Marijoa was probably unrelated to him. But Rayleigh had a hunch that this young man had indeed done something in Marijoa. Oh, right, Yvonne. Hancock turned around belatedly and asked curiously, "What did you do when you left alone at that time?" "Nothing," Yvonne said calmly, "I just set off 2 fireworks for the Tianlong people before leaving." "Fireworks?" Xiaoqi said with a smile, "That must be some incredible fireworks." Rayleigh looked at Yvonne. The boy's face was still very skinny, with no visible flesh at all, almost like a skeleton. But this thin body contained an amazing power that couldn't wait to radiate from his eyes. "But Xiao Yiwen." Xiaoqi lit a cigarette and said softly, "Taking action against the celestial dragons is no small matter. It is not only no small matter, it is a major event. The celestial dragons are an absolute taboo in the world. Taking action against them means enduring the government's full-scale hunting and killing. That is the real power of half the world. There is no need to say more about this, Xiaoqi." Rayleigh suddenly spoke up. He looked at Yvonne, "Right. The boy, no, the man has made up his mind, so there is naturally no need to say more." Yvonne nodded lightly, "This is just the beginning, sooner or later, I will destroy all the celestial dragons and completely subvert the world government." "There is nothing that cannot be said, will Rayleigh inform the government?" Yvonne. Hancock, who was ignorant, had no idea what kind of shocking words Yvonne said. He just thought that the boy looked handsome with his fists clenched. Xiaoqi was silent for a moment, then shook her head helplessly, "Really, should I say, is this what young people are like? Maybe ignorant, but fearless. Even if you set a goal, no matter how far it is, you still strive to move forward. Calculating gains and losses? This is something that adults will consider. Ha ha ha. It's great to be young, isn't it?" Xiaoqi. Rayleigh laughed loudly, and at Ivan's words, he gulped down the whole bottle of wine. The ambitions of young people are the best appetizers for their predecessors. They were like this when they were young. They were ignorant of the immensity of the world, fearless, and only wanted to make a mess of this stagnant world. "But Yvonne, this is not an easy task." Rayleigh put down the bottle, "It is even more difficult than when we conquered the Grand Line. Back then, their opponents were only pirates, and they occasionally fought with the navy. But this boy, he has set his sights on the world government from the beginning. Nothing is eternal in the world, there will always be someone who overthrows the world government. Yvonne didn't care at all, then why can't it be me? Could it only be Nika?" Rayleigh was stunned for a moment. Then he slapped his thigh and laughed, "Ha ha ha ha. Well said. Well said, Yvonne. I will help you too, Yvonne." Hancock also felt herself getting excited, and she also stood up by slapping the table, and said loudly and majestically. Because of Yvonne, she was not tortured by the celestial dragons, and this experience was safe and sound. But since this was what Yvonne wanted to do, she felt that she should also help. After all, she had said before that she would leave it to her, but in the end she didn't help at all, and Hancock felt very guilty. "So, Yvonne, what are you going to do next?" Rayleigh was a little curious. With such bold words, he couldn't have no plan, right? Yvonne nodded slightly, "I heard that Nine Snake Island is the land of domineering people. I think I should be able to become powerful there." Xiaoqi said with interest, "But Nine Snake Island does not welcome men to land, even a young man like you. This is a tradition for hundreds of years." Hancock immediately puffed out his chest and said, "I will let His Majesty the Emperor accept Yvonne." "Little Hancock, you can't do that. Even if you become an emperor in the future, you can't break the rules at will." Xiaoqi covered her mouth and chuckled. She glanced at Rayleigh. She couldn't do that when she was the emperor. However, it was no problem to find an island near Nine Snake Island. "That's enough, thank you very much, Xiaoqi," Yvonne said solemnly. Although he is no longer the emperor of Nine Snakes, Xiaoqi's influence on Nine Snakes Island must be extraordinary. He originally thought so. "You saved Hancock and the others, so this little favor is nothing." Xiaoqi didn't care. At this time, Rayleigh pushed his glasses and suddenly said, "Regarding domineering, Yvonne, you have to take good care of your body first. Without a strong enough body, you can't cultivate domineering. This child's body is too weak. Not to mention compared with those gifted monsters, even compared with children of the same age, there is a big gap. If other abilities are not counted, 50 Ivans can't beat a Hancock." "I know." Yvonne nodded gently, "I will spend a few years to train my body." "That's good. Remember, don't aim too high. Is this the reason why you didn't teach Luffy advanced armament Haki, and even didn't tell him about the existence of Conqueror Haki? This thought emerged in Ivan's mind. Stop talking, Lao Lei, we're almost in the doldrums. Xiaoqi flicked the ash off her cigarette. Com belt? Wait. Hancock's expression suddenly changed. Even she knew, this ship can't sail in the com belt. The boat suddenly shook violently. At the same time, there was a cry of surprise from outside, Sea King. Yvonne hurriedly looked out through the cabin door. In front of the boat, a snake-like monster emerged from under the sea. You couldn't even see its head. Its body alone was several times thicker than the boat. In addition to the lack of wind and the inability of sailboats to sail with the help of wind, the doldrums is also the nest of sea kings. Hancock's face was already pale. A small boat like this would be smashed to pieces in front of the sea kings in a blink of an eye. But Yvonne was not panicked at all. Xiaoqi glanced at Rayleigh lightly, don't sit there. Rayleigh just smiled and pushed his glasses up. Buzz. The invisible spirit roared out in an instant, passing through the cabin, the boat, and the two sisters at the bow, and instantly penetrated the huge body of the Sea King. Woo! A terrified cry sounded like thunder, and then Yvonne saw that the huge Sea King outside the cabin trembled and lowered its head, revealing a huge head like a horse. The boat pullers are here. Rayleigh stood up and smiled slightly, without any pride. Later. A huge snake-like Sea King swam quickly on the sea, and behind it, a small boat followed closely with a rope tied to it. Yvonne stood at the bow, looking at the huge monster in front of him, and he was inevitably shocked. The length was at least more than 300 meters. It was a behemoth that was unimaginable in the previous life, but it was tamed so easily. Although it could not communicate, it could be driven forward with the domineering color. No matter what kind of domineering, the most basic and most important trick is always control. Beside him, Rayleigh leaned on the side of the ship and said calmly. Yvonne nodded gently. Xiaoqi's voice came from the bow, we're almost there, 9 Snake Island. Yvonne tilted his head and looked forward from the side of the Sea King. On the sea in front, a lush island was clearly visible. The most conspicuous, of course, was the mountain in front of the island and the snake head statue on the mountain. 9 Snake Island, here we are. Chapter 7. Crash. The sea surface that should have been calm in the calm zone was turbulent. The huge monster fled towards the distant sea at a rapid speed like it was fleeing. While swimming away, it dived into the deep sea. It can be seen that it will not appear on the sea surface for a long time. It was scared. Yvonne felt quite emotional when he saw the shadow of the Sea King fleeing in a panic. The boat stopped at the shore of 9 Snake Island. The 3 Hancock sisters had already gone to the island with Xiaoqi. The 2 men stayed on the boat because of the rules of 9 Snake Island. Yvonne didn't have any objection to this. Rayleigh, the genuine former queen of Amazon Lily, was not allowed to go on the island. What else could he say? Yvonne suddenly turned around and looked at Rayleigh, who was sitting on the side of the boat drinking. Rayleigh. What? What happened during the blank 100 years? Ivan's question made Rayleigh pause in his drinking and his eyes stayed on Ivan's face. Yvonne, are you interested in this kind of thing? I just think that since the government has erased the history of the past 100 years, it means that what happened during this period must be something they never want the world to know. Perhaps this will help overthrow the government. Yvonne explained briefly. Maybe it is true. Rayleigh took another sip of wine, then smiled self-deprecatingly, but it's too early, Yvonne. Too early? Yvonne frowned. What do you mean by too early? If the truth is revealed before the time is right, the whole world will face a catastrophe, and a new blank 100 years will appear. Listen, Yvonne, your opponent is a monster who has been controlling the world for 800 years. Anxiety and anger will not allow you to defeat him. We still need to wait for a strong helper. Does that mean we have to wait until the Sea King matures? Princess Shirahoshi is not born yet. Perhaps there is also the Pluto buried in Wano country. Without someone who can command the Lord of the Elephants, Wano country cannot be founded, and the Pluto cannot be taken out. There may even be a heavenly king who is not mentioned in the original work. Is Rayleigh talking about the 3 ancient weapons? Yvonne is not sure. But he doesn't want to ask any more. I understand. He just said, since you don't want to tell me, I'll go and see it myself. Ha 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 ha. That's no problem. Rayleigh laughed, but it's not easy. While the two were chatting, in front of them, in the inland river of the island, a red ship was rapidly going downstream. The flag floating on the top of the mast was printed with the pattern of a 9-headed snake skull, and below it were 2 huge sea snakes carrying it on their backs. This ship was the flagship of the 9 Snakes Pirates, the Perfume Serpent. Yvonne. As the ship got closer, Yvonne could hear Hancock's shout. The girl was standing next to a woman at the bow of the ship, waving her hands excitedly at him. Yvonne waved back at her in response. Later, a banquet was held on the Perfume Serpent. The ship was quite large, with a length of over 100 meters. The deck was like a small square, and it was not crowded even for a banquet. Tables were arranged on the deck, and delicious food was placed on the tables. The 9 Snakes Pirates members sitting around the tables were already salivating. Little Yvonne. I've heard everything from Hancock and Sister Xiaoqi. Thank you very much for helping the 3 Hancock sisters. If it weren't for you, I can't imagine how they would be treated. The speaker was a middle-aged woman, whose figure could be described as tall and strong. She must be over 3 meters tall and had a strong physique. Yvonne was no different from a toddler in front of her. She was the person Yvonne had just seen from afar, the captain of the 9 Snakes Pirates, the 9 Snakes Emperor, Ross. Ross invited Yvonne and Rayleigh to the Perfume Serpent and hosted a banquet for them. Although men cannot be allowed to land on the 9 Snakes Island, this ship is different. It's nothing. Yvonne shook his head. Hancock has promised to teach me domineering in return. All other thanks are false, only domineering is real. That's certainly not a problem. The 9 Snakes Emperor laughed and said proudly, 9 Snakes Island is the land of domineering. Observation Haki, armament Haki, and even conqueror Haki, as long as you need it, all domineering skills are open to you. His Majesty the Emperor said to Yvonne very sincerely, Little Yvonne, you are the benefactor of the 9 Snakes. Hancock is not an ordinary 9 Snakes girl. She is a genius child who was able to sail with the 9 Snakes Pirates at the age of 12. In addition to her begging with her own charm, her outstanding talent cannot be ignored. You know, in the original work, even if she was a slave for 4 years and wasted 4 years, she almost became the new emperor soon after returning to 9 Snakes. The 9 Snakes Pirates have long regarded her as the future captain's successor. Ha ha ha. Anyway. Ross raised his glass, for the arrival of little Yvonne and Rayleigh, and for the return of big sister Xiaoqi. Raise your glasses. The lively banquet began. This was Ivan's first time to attend a pirate-style banquet. Should I say noisy? Hee, chattering, fighting and making noise. There was no moment of silence in the lively ears. The 9 Snakes Pirates are already like this, what about the Straw Hat Pirates? Carefully avoiding a chicken bone flying in the air, Yvonne held a roasted suckling pig and gnawed it, thinking so in his heart. The 9 Snakes Pirates have indeed regarded him as a friend. Ross will send him to a nearby deserted island next. Unlike the island where Luffy practiced in the original work, it is a very safe island, and there are no dangerous creatures on the island at all. They 9 Snakes Pirates will also send him supplies regularly. Very good, Yvonne can't ask for more. His Majesty won't allow me to go to the island to accompany you. Yvonne. Hancock sat next to Yvonne and gritted her teeth, not letting you stay on 9 Snake Island is fine, but she even said that I have to stay in the 9 Snakes Pirates to receive her training. How abominable! The little girl was angry, her brows wrinkled like a caterpillar. Yvonne couldn't help laughing, then work hard to become stronger, Hancock, and become the new captain as soon as possible, then no one can control you anymore. That's right. Hancock nodded in agreement and clenched her fists passionately, I want to be the captain of the 9 Snakes Pirates. By then, no one will be able to stop me. She glanced at Yvonne and said with a smile, and Yvonne, by then, I will be able to help you. Let's overthrow the world government together then. Yvonne just laughed with her and didn't say anything. As for helpers, I don't need them. If the world government is the opponent, the more ties there are, the more weaknesses there are. The bear is the most obvious example. When the banquet came to an end, the Perfume Serpent had stopped on the coast of a small island. This is a lush island that looks full of vitality. Yvonne stood at the side of the ship and looked at the island. This is where he will live for the next few years. After sending him here, the 9 Snakes Pirates did not leave immediately. Ross mobilized the crew to land, cut down trees, and quickly built a wooden house for Yvonne to live in. Coupled with the various daily necessities they brought, a simple life would definitely not be a problem. Then it was time to say goodbye. Hancock tried to persuade Ross again, but was flatly rejected. She was almost dragged onto the ship by Captain Ross. Before leaving, she shouted to Yvonne, "Yvonne, wait until I come to see you next time." However, not everyone got on board. Yvonne looked at Rayleigh, who was standing aside and drinking leisurely, in some surprise. On the side of the boat, Xiaoqi smoked a cigarette and said with a smile, "No matter what, you are still a child, little Yvonne. Let old Ray stay here to take care of you until you can take care of yourself." Yvonne looked at Xiaoqi, then looked at Rayleigh. "What are you looking at, kid?" Rayleigh stretched, "Are you ready to start training? Want to surpass us? Then let me see what you can do, Yvonne." Chapter 8. On the coast of a deserted island, a figure was staggering forward. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yvonne was panting heavily, his thin chest rising and falling. Sweat was pouring down his pale face, without a trace of blood. He felt so uncomfortable. His lungs felt like they were about to burst, and every breath he took was as painful as if his trachea was being cut by a knife. His legs felt like they were filled with lead, and lifting them up felt as heavy as Mount Tai. The scene in front of him was becoming blurry, the golden beach and the azure sea were almost merging into one, completely distorted. He was so tired. So tired. "Don't stop. Yvonne." Rayleigh trotted after Yvonne and shouted, "Have you forgotten your goal? Have you forgotten the humiliation you once suffered? You don't even need to tell me about this kind of thing." "Rayleigh." Yvonne gritted his teeth. "But his body has reached its limit. Today is the second day on this island." After breakfast, the exercise began. The morning exercise proposed by Rayleigh is to run around the island. It sounds simple, but it is very difficult to do. The area of this island is not too large, but the distance around the island is more than 20 kilometers. And Ivan's body is extremely weak, even weaker than children of the same age in his previous life. Now he has only run less than a quarter, and his body has almost reached its limit. Every step is a huge test. However, it is not time to stop. Although the body has reached its limit, the will has not yet. Yvonne gritted his teeth and stepped desperately. "Can't stop. Absolutely can't stop. Laziness is like a rolling stone on a snowy mountain. At first, you just want to be a little lazy, but gradually it will roll bigger and bigger, and become more and more lazy. Go forward. In order to become stronger, you can only keep moving forward. Even if your lungs are about to burst, even if your legs are unimaginably heavy, Yvonne still doesn't stop. Although slowly, he is still moving forward." "Ha ha ha ha. Very good. Yvonne, very good." Rayleigh laughed, "Don't worry about your physical limits. Grit your teeth and keep your spirits up. Just keep running forward. Willpower is also a kind of power. When the willpower is strong enough, it is enough to drive your body to move and let you break through your limits. I can hear it clearly. At this time, I can hear what Rayleigh is saying. Willpower drives the body? Life is returned? It seems to be true." Yvonne took a deep breath and abandoned all distractions. Just like Rayleigh said, he just kept running forward. Even if the overloaded lungs made him stop, even if the blood was about to boil, even if the body was too heavy to move forward. He just kept moving forward. Forward. Only by moving forward can he become stronger, and only by moving forward can he take revenge on the celestial dragons. Yvonne even started to speed up. His originally staggering body became stable at this time. "Good." Rayleigh nodded gently. Physical fitness is secondary, and the strength of the mind is the key. Without the will to move forward, it is impossible to become a truly strong person. As it happens, Yvonne has such a will. This run took a whole morning. When Yvonne finally returned to the starting point, which was the end point, it was already afternoon. He almost fell to the ground immediately, and he no longer had the strength to move. "Don't be in a hurry to rest." Rayleigh came over carrying a huge grilled fish. "Eat something first to replenish your energy, and then you can do some strength training in the afternoon." Aerobic and anaerobic? Really professional, Rayleigh. Yvonne only had the strength to look at Rayleigh with his eyes, thinking so in his heart. After lying on the ground for more than 10 minutes, he barely sat up and started to eat lunch. "Eat more, Yvonne," Rayleigh said with a smile. "Without sufficient energy intake, the body can't keep up with such high-intensity training." Yvonne didn't say anything, but just ate meat in big mouthfuls. His strength was recovering little by little, and although the fatigue was slowly leaving, it was indeed leaving. The bodies of people in this world are really like sheets. As long as you have an unswerving will and can overcome the weakness of the flesh, you can become stronger. 200 times the effort may be a bit difficult, so let's try twice as much first. A week passed in the blink of an eye. During this week, Ivan ran in the morning, lifted weights in the afternoon, and did weighted squats. Every day, he fell asleep after a rest because he was tired, and woke up the next day with fatigue, and repeated what happened yesterday. But the effect was immediate. At least the time required to go around the island was shortened a lot, and it could be finished before lunch. At noon a week later, Ivan was squatting while carrying a piece of wood and sweating profusely. "Ivan!" A cheerful voice came. Ivan turned around. Hancock ran over with a big bag on her back. Behind her were several members of the Nine Snakes pirates, also carrying large and small bags. They were delivering supplies. "Still exercising?" Hancock ran to Ivan in one breath. Looking at his pale face, she couldn't help but feel distressed. "How about taking a break first?" Ivan shook his head and gritted his teeth. "No, it's not time to rest yet." Hancock widened his eyes and sniffed. "So hard-working. Ivan is worthy of it. By the way, we brought you some goodies." "Good stuff." Ivan tried to stand up, his muscles trembling from fatigue and exertion. "It's something that can make you stronger, Ivan." Hancock quickly put the big bag on the ground and took out bags of sauce-like things from it. "What is that?" Ivan was a little curious. "Is it the secret medicine made by Nine Snakes?" "It's Lux Hot Pot," Hancock said loudly. "Hot pot?" Ivan suspected that he had heard it wrong. "Hiss." Inside the iron pot, the steaming hot pot bottom was boiling, and the various ingredients cooked inside were also rising and falling with the boiling pot bottom. Ivan picked up a piece of meat with chopsticks and stuffed it directly into his mouth without caring about the burning temperature. The scorching temperature made him grimace. Everyone was eating hot pot. Hancock and the members of the Nine Snakes pirates brought pots and ingredients and held a hot pot banquet in this forest. However, this was not an ordinary hot pot. After swallowing the meat in his mouth, Ivan's eyes lit up. "My physical strength is recovering rapidly." "Humph, this is a specialty of the Nine Snakes," Hancock said proudly. "Lux Hot Pot, I've also heard about it from Xiachi." Rayleigh nodded slightly. "The sauce is specially made, and the food cooked with it as the soup base can provide huge energy to the body." Ivan also remembered this thing. Hancock's two sisters were originally quite slim and of normal body shape, but in order to become stronger, they ate too much Lux Hot Pot, and ended up becoming a little weird and too strong. "This is really perfect for me." Ivan looked at Hancock. "Hancock, can you give me more of this thing?" "Of course, no problem." Hancock patted his chest and promised, "As many as you want." Ivan nodded heavily. "In this way, the time to recuperate can be shortened. I can become stronger faster." While Ivan started to exercise, Marijoa and the 5 stars also got some clues. Before the attack, a young slave, using his ability to summon warriors, killed the guards and escaped, taking 3 young slave girls with him. Does that little devil have that kind of power? Who knows? But this is the only clue. Let's check and find out their identities. The government began to act. In this way, 4 years have passed. The current time is 1507 Hiwan calendar. Chapter 9. 4 years later, on this nameless deserted island. Rayleigh held up his sword and smiled at the boy in front of him. "You've grown a lot taller, Ivan." Opposite him, the boy with his upper body naked stood tall. 4 years later, Ivan, who was once as thin as a mummy, has now become a strong boy. His muscles are full and his figure is slender. Perhaps because he ate too much Lux Hot Pot, his height is close to 2 meters. But fortunately, the intensity of the exercise is very high, and the energy of the Lux Hot Pot is completely consumed, and there is no accumulation of energy to deform his body. Ivan, who is 16 years old this year, is already a handsome boy. Just as Hancock said that year, he is really good looking. His face is soft and symmetrical, with smooth lines and no flaws. Even after years of exercise, his skin is quite white, and it is even smoother when you look closely, like a snow-white jade, exuding a pure brilliance, with red lips and white teeth, a high nose bridge, and half-long black hair. At first glance, he has a feminine beauty. But a closer look will show that there is no softness in him. This is all thanks to his pair of scarlet eyes, like a hawk's, soaring in the sky, ready to tear the prey on the ground with his claws. That is the look of a hunter, always chasing his prey. This makes everyone who sees Ivan feel a sharpness instinctively. He is as sharp as a sword out of its sheath. However, the flawless Ivan only has a mark on his chest. A mark that brings him infinite humiliation. After all, half a year has passed. Ivan answered calmly. Rayleigh only stayed on the island for half a year, and left after confirming that Ivan had the ability to take care of himself. After that, he would come back every 6 months to check on Ivan's condition. Then let me see your growth in the past 6 months, Ivan. Rayleigh's smile remained unchanged, but he slowly drew out the sword in his hand. You shouldn't have stood still, right? You will know soon. Ivan smiled. He also had a knife in his hand, but he did not draw it out. Come on then. Rayleigh waved gently towards Ivan. I won't be polite. Ivan put the knife back at his waist, put his right hand on the handle, lowered his body, and his breathing slowed down instantly. This is a standard starting move for the sword drawing technique. Ashina style. The next moment, Ivan rushed in front of Rayleigh, and 2 sharp arcs of light burst out from his waist, intersecting in the air to form a cross. Cross/. Faster. Rayleigh nodded slightly and swung his sword casually. With 2 clangs, Ivan was directly thrown away. Although Ivan was knocked away, Rayleigh could not hide his admiration in his eyes. Not everyone can withstand Ivan's sword-drawing move just now. Fly across the floating boat. The moment Ivan landed, his body was already dancing like a flying swallow, leaping towards Rayleigh while the blade in his hand was moving quickly, leaving arcs of light in the air. Dang 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 dang. In just a blink of an eye, Ivan had already made 5 slashes in one breath, attacking Rayleigh from completely different angles. It was still fast, overwhelmingly fast. But this time, in addition to being fast, there was also a hint of inexplicable beauty. But unfortunately, the opponent was Rayleigh. Amid the crisp sound of swords colliding, Ivan's slashes were all blocked by Rayleigh. Since 5 slashes are not enough, then more. Secret Teachings Flying Vortex Cloud. Ivan turned his body slightly, and swung out a storm of continuous slashes like dancing. Above, below, left, right, upper left, lower right. The storm covered all directions of Rayleigh's body, and in the blink of an eye, it completely enveloped him with the storm of slashes. It is indeed a superb swordsmanship. There is such a swordsman among the slaves, but the power is not enough. Rayleigh swung his sword decisively. This sword hit Ivan's knife in the storm with incomparable accuracy, almost making his blade slip out of his hand, and the storm of slashing naturally stopped. But when the blade was knocked high, Ivan punched hard with his left fist. Xianfeng Temple Kowtowing Fist. Bang bang bang. The air was beaten to make a thunderous sound. And Ivan punched 3 such punches in a row. Rayleigh also caught his 3 punches. Xianfeng Kick. Ivan leaned back with the force, and his right leg lashed at Rayleigh like a steel whip. Rayleigh leaned back slightly to dodge, and Ivan took advantage of the situation to jump up and chop down with a powerful right leg. But Rayleigh simply grabbed his leg and threw Ivan into the air. Again, the power is not enough. In this case, Ivan took a deep breath. I'll show you my new power. He took a deep breath, and then exhaled. His breathing switched to another channel in the blink of an eye. Then, crack! A flash of lightning instantly jumped on Ivan's bangs. Hey! Rayleigh raised his eyebrows in surprise. Did he see it wrong? Feel the thunder. Rayleigh. Ivan's breathing became heavier. Crackling. The golden thunder jumped up from his body without any concealment. Surrounded by thunder, Ivan seemed like the god of thunder descending to earth. Thunder and lightning. Rayleigh said in astonishment, Ivan, did you eat a devil fruit? The thunder fruit? No, it's just a trivial skill. Ivan chuckled. This is just the breathing of thunder. It comes from the breathing of thunder mastered by Zenitsuo Agatsuma in the world of Demon Slayer. This is a new skill that Ivan just drew a few days ago. In the original world, all you can do is to strengthen your physical fitness to kill demons, and the fancy lightning is just a special effect. But in this world, the situation is different. Zoro can transform into the 9 swords style, so of course Ivan can create real thunder through the breathing of thunder. Breathing of thunder, full concentration constant. Between the splashes of lightning, Ivan can feel the power. The violent power surges in his body. Come on Rayleigh, it's the second stage. Chapter 10. Although the breathing of thunder has evolved in this world, allowing Yvonne to directly possess the power to control thunder, the unique skill Yvonne obtained is only the breathing method itself, and does not include the sword style mastered by Agatsuma Zenitsu. In other words, he only has internal strength and has not mastered any moves. But it doesn't matter. Yvonne acquired a unique skill called Ashina style in the first year after arriving on the deserted island. This is a move from the final boss Ashina Ishin in the game Sekiro. Ashina Ishin is a world-famous swordsman who has collected countless school moves throughout his life, and finally integrated them into a move called Ashina style. Ashina style emphasizes using everything to the extreme, including swordsmanship, physical skills, spearmanship, and even musketry. Just this one unique skill has turned Yvonne into a master of physical skills. Many of Ashina style's sword moves are extremely fast sword drawing techniques, which can be said to be in perfect harmony with the breathing of thunder, and may not be inferior to Zenitsu Agatsuma's Thunderbolt Flash. Here it comes. Rayleigh. Yvonne laughed wantonly, and as he fell, he raised the long sword in his hand. Crackling lightning jumped on his blade, and in the next moment it exploded into a golden beam of light. Come on. Rayleigh smiled brightly. Secret technique, Thunder of Ba. Originally, it was the divine thunder from the Sakura dragon, which Ashina Ishin learned from the female warrior Ba of the Ogami tribe. It should have been used only in an environment with thunder, but since Yvonne himself could create thunder, it became a real regular move. As Yvonne swung his sword, the thunder turned into a spear that pierced through everything, roaring down, like the Milky Way hanging upside down. Great! This is not a move that can be resisted by the flesh. Rayleigh exclaimed, and the blade in his hand turned black for the first time, with invisible waves wrapped around it. Ha! He shouted, and the domineering shock wave radiated from the sword blade, turning into a wave cannon and directly blasting the falling thunder. The golden thunder jumped around, and the ground was blown into holes one by one. The forest was directly ignited, and the flames spread. In the explosion, a black shadow suddenly fell. Secret Giant Ninja Drop Kill. This time, it was the secret of the ninja. It was a top-down ultimate move. Lightning turned into an arc of slashing light, and Yvonne pulled out a brilliant lightning slash, but his sword was faster than lightning, so fast that it was difficult to see with the naked eye. The secret of the ninja is to kill with one strike. Instantly judge the opponent's weak point, and then kill with one strike. Dangerous sword. Rayleigh laughed, raised the blade, shattered the thunder again, and the swords collided again. Just now it was the armament Haki, now even the observation Haki is used. Moreover, what a strong power! Rayleigh smiled brightly. This kid's strength is not at the same level as before, at least it has increased several times. If the previous strength was at the level of an ordinary teenager who has received rigorous training, now it has reached the realm of monsters. This is the power that thunder breathing has given Yvonne. It was originally a technique used to fight inhuman ghosts, allowing ordinary people to have superhuman physical fitness. In this world, it gives Yvonne power comparable to monsters. Yvonne used the force to retreat, tapping the ground with his toes. Now is not the time to be amazed. Giant Ninja Thrust. Crack. Lightning splashed. Yvonne held the sword with both hands, and turned into a flash of lightning. The long sword in his palm was surrounded by lightning, and it was impossible to see its original appearance. It was like a thunder spear that pierced through everything. Rayleigh narrowed his eyes. So fast. Although the power has become very strong, the speed is the most terrifying thing. Even he has to use the observation Haki seriously. Dang! Rayleigh raised his long sword and blocked Ivan's thrust just right. But at this moment, Yvonne lowered his body, and the long sword had returned to the sheath at some point. The next moment, lightning splashed on the scabbard. Secret, one heart. The long sword was unsheathed, and the brilliant thunder turned into a sword light. The space seemed to be directly cut off, and everything affected by the sword light seemed to be directly dislocated. Dang! In the lightning that shot up into the sky, Rayleigh, who was holding the sword in front of him, took a step back unconsciously. But this is not the end. The bright sword light has not dissipated yet, and the air suddenly began to riot. Countless golden and brilliant sword lights appeared out of thin air. Rayleigh seemed to be in a storm in an instant. It looks like one, but in fact it is dozens of sword slashes. If the previous flying vortex cloud was as fast as lightning, then the secret of one heart now is dozens of Ivans launching a rapid sword draw at the same time. Dozens of slashes were swung out almost at the same time, and there was no difference in order at all. Amazing! This move has become even more powerful. Rayleigh exclaimed. Even he was far inferior to such swordsmanship. After all, he was not a swordsman, he just happened to fight with a sword. However, poor swordsmanship did not mean that Rayleigh could not deal with it. In fact, he dealt with it quite easily. The fluctuations of domineering on the blade surged. With just a swing of the sword, the gushing domineering turned into a raging storm, instantly drowning Ivan's sword light. High-level armed color can flow outward. A true armed color master can send out a devastating domineering shock wave with bare hands. Ivan easily dodged the attack with a long flash of lightning, and his sword had returned to the sheath again. Secret Ishin is the unique skill used by the elderly Ashina Ishin. There are 3 stages in total. The first stage is the rapid sword slash, the second stage is the slashing storm, and the remaining is the third stage, which is a stronger sword slash used when the enemy is restrained by the slashing storm. But Ivan did not draw his sword. He dispersed the lightning on his body and shook his head. Let's stop here. Is it over? Rayleigh was a little surprised. And dispersed the condensed domineering aura. Ivan raised his hand and pulled out his knife. The sharp blade had turned red, and the blade was twisted and had completely lost its original shape. This fine blade could no longer withstand Ivan's thunder and became twisted. The high temperature almost melted it. It seems that it is time to start learning how to be domineering. Rayleigh said with a smile, otherwise, even if I give you a famous sword, you won't be able to hold out for too long. Is it ready? Ivan's eyes lit up. In the past 4 years, he has been training his body, and he has not practiced domineering at all. Of course, even if you don't become that lightning shining figure, your physique is already very strong. You haven't slacked off for the past 4 years, Ivan. Rayleigh did not hide his praise in his words. It's time to take a step further. Although you may be learning Haki from 9 snakes, if you don't mind. Rayleigh suddenly smiled, how about letting me teach you? Rayleigh. Ivan was a little surprised. If staying to take care of him could be explained by caring for the child, then volunteering now was wrong. Rayleigh looked at the boy in front of him. He had witnessed the growth of this child for almost 4 years. Rayleigh could confirm that, like Shanks, this child had the power to change the future. I want to see how far you can go. Ivan paused, then smiled, then please. Chapter 11. Although Rayleigh was always said to be a mediocre teacher in his previous life, it is easy to imagine that if Luffy's 3-color Haki foundation was not solid enough, how could he easily upgrade all 3 colors of Haki? Among his peers, no one has a stronger Haki than Luffy. This is of course Rayleigh's credit. Ivan was naturally happy to see his proposal. So, the practice of Haki began. The first class was a theoretical class. Haki is a power that everyone has. Ivan sat cross-legged on the ground, and Rayleigh sat on a tree stump to give him a lesson. The only difference is whether you can stimulate it. Even the King's color Haki is theoretically the same. In theory. Ivan raised his eyebrows. It is not that one can become a hegemon by possessing the Conqueror's Haki, but only a hegemon can awaken the Conqueror's Haki. Rayleigh said, a fearless and indomitable heart, this is the real key. But unfortunately, people with this trait have always been a minority among the minority. But you have already awakened your Conqueror's Haki 4 years ago, so there is no need to say more. Conqueror Haki cannot be made stronger through training, it can only be enhanced as strength and spirit are improved. So, the key to training is the Armament Haki and Observation Haki. Armament Haki is an invisible armor, and when practiced to a certain level, it can also be transformed into an invisible gun. And the power of observation and hearing is the power of hearing. If you practice it to the top level, you can even foresee the future to a certain extent. Ivan was familiar with all of this. He just asked, so, how do we start practicing? Rayleigh smiled strangely, heroic aura has always been hidden in the human body, but it is difficult for us to discover its existence. So, as long as you understand what domineering is, you will be able to find them yourself and then guide them out. Understand what Haki is? Ivan had a bad feeling, how do you understand? Rayleigh picked up a stick at the side, and invisible waves instantly covered it, of course I understand. Are you ready? Ivan. I see, use your body to feel it. You don't teach Luffy advanced armament Haki, and don't tell him about the Haki entanglement. Isn't this your idea? Let him get beaten, and then see for himself. Ivan took a deep breath and stood up. Come on. In any case, as long as he can become stronger, it doesn't matter. Really, even if it's cultivation, you don't have to work so hard, Ivan. Ivan sat cross-legged on the ground, his upper body naked, his body covered with bruises, looking quite creepy. The girl with long black hair stood behind him, bending over, carefully applying medicine to him. The girl was wearing a red cheongsam, and her breathtaking figure was outlined vividly. While applying medicine to Ivan, she turned her head and yelled at Rayleigh, who was sitting on a tree stump nearby, and, Rayleigh, you guy. You actually beat Ivan like this? Ha 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 ha, this is practice, Hancock. Rayleigh laughed and didn't care. Ivan is totally enjoying it. That's right. Ivan's face was also bruised and swollen, and he looked very embarrassed, but his smile was quite bright. I have a feeling that if this continues, it won't be long before he can learn to be domineering. Ah! Ivan! The girl's cheeks flushed instantly, and she covered her face with her hands, looking intoxicated. Although you refuted me, but this confident and serious look is also very handsome. Hancock! Ivan said helplessly, didn't you say you would give me medicine? 4 years later, Hancock had grown up. During these 4 years, she came back to see Ivan once a week. But as she got older, something started to go wrong with her. Yes. I'll help Ivan apply the medicine. Hancock responded cheerfully, carefully rubbing the medicine on Ivan's back, and then gently rubbing it with her delicate white palms. Where Ivan couldn't see, the girl's cheeks flushed. Hee hee, Ivan's muscles. Hee hee hee, Ivan's skin. Hee 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 hee, Ivan's smell. Ha 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 ha. Rayleigh just laughed. Love is like a storm. Brother Ivan, the ingredients have been prepared. In the wooden house nearby, Sonia pushed the door open and came out. The firewood is chopped. Marigold came back with an axe. 4 years later, the two girls grew up. But just like in the original work, because they ate too much Lux Hot Pot, they became too tall and their body shapes were completely out of shape. Well, leave it to me next. Ivan twisted his neck. Great! Hancock cheered, hee hee, I'm looking forward to the food made by Ivan. Ivan smiled confidently. In the second year of coming to this island, the unique skill he acquired was cooking, which came from the king of medicine Soma Yukihira in the world of food wars. Although it is of little help in combat, at least there will be no shortage of delicious food on this deserted island. By the way, the skill obtained in the third year was Sleep from Nobita Nobi in the Doraemon world. An ability that Ivan didn't know how to evaluate. If you say it's useful, it's of no help in combat or becoming stronger. If you say it's useless, it allows Ivan to fall asleep instantly, and have super high quality sleep, which can restore his energy to the greatest extent. The cooking skills from Soma Yukihira gave Ivan extraordinary cooking skills. It didn't take too long for a table of delicious food to be ready. No matter how many times I eat it, I will sigh with admiration. Riley took a big crab and bit it without any hesitation. When did you develop such cooking skills? I just figured it out. Ivan said calmly, if you live alone, you have to make your life better. Riley laughed. He was curious about what Ivan was like before he became a slave. How could an ordinary slave have such swordsmanship? Not to mention the strange physical skills of controlling lightning, which were not inferior to the devil fruit. But there was one person who believed it completely. As expected of Ivan. He's also a genius in cooking. Hancock sat next to Ivan, almost clinging to him, her face flushed. I never get tired of eating this. Otherwise, why do people say that Yukihira Soma is the king of medicine? Look at what this child is eating. That's delicious. Ivan picked up a chicken leg and stuffed it into her mouth. Woohoo, the chicken leg that Ivan fed me with his own hands, this is love. Hancock twisted his body like a snake, I want to save this chicken leg. Sister, you should also restrain yourself a little. Sonia couldn't bear it. Sister is really getting more and more obsessed with Ivan. By the way, brother Ivan, there is big news on the sea these 2 days. Marigold suddenly said, you probably don't know yet. Big news. Ivan raised his eyebrows. What is it? Someone attacked Marijoa. Sonia replied, it was a fishman named Fisher Tiger. He freed many slaves, and now the sea is in an uproar. Chapter 12. Has someone attacked Marijoa again? Rayleigh exclaimed, times have really changed. This kind of thing might not have happened once in a few hundred years. Now it has happened twice in a short period of a few years. Fisher Tiger. Rayleigh recalled, I think I've heard of him. He was the leader of Fishman Street on Fishman Island, right? That damn guy. Hancock gritted her teeth and said, it was obviously Yvonne who attacked Marijoa first. And the noise was much bigger, but it was he, the latecomer, who became famous on the sea. This damn thief. Although the attack 4 years ago made a lot of noise, the details of what happened did not spread to the sea. The world government completely blocked the news, probably because they didn't want the world to know that someone dared to attack the celestial dragons directly. So no one knew what Yvonne did at that time. But Fisher Tiger was different. With so many slaves fleeing to the sea, the noise could not be concealed. But Yvonne felt quite speechless about Hancock's statement. That man was your savior in destiny, Hancock. Don't say that, Hancock, he is a real hero. Yvonne said seriously. The Revolutionary Army didn't dare to go to Marijoa to save their own cotters, but Fisher Tiger dared to go to Marijoa alone. Such courage is enough for anyone to look up to. Hancock also said very seriously, Yvonne is the real hero. In the past few years, she has also gone to sea with the 9 Snakes pirates, and now she really understands what the world government is like. So she understands how amazing Yvonne is who can do such a thing at the age of 12. But since you said so, Yvonne, I will reluctantly admit him. Hancock crossed her arms and looked a little arrogant. Yvonne sighed a little. This Hancock was indeed different from the Hancock in the original work. Although she was still a little arrogant, she was far from being so arrogant, because she had never experienced hardship and did not need a hard shell to protect herself. However, being famous is not a good thing. Rayleigh said, the government will not let him go. Everything related to the celestial dragons is the top priority of the world government. They certainly will not let a criminal who attacked Marijoa go unpunished. This is indeed the case. 3 years later, Fisher Tiger died under the betrayal of humans and died after saving the last slave. Maybe it won't be long before the government won't have time to look for him. Yvonne said calmly. Rayleigh's eyes darkened instantly. Yvonne, don't worry. Don't worry, Rayleigh, I know what I'm doing. Yvonne smiled, eat and then continue exercising. I want to learn domineering quickly. He suddenly felt his hand warm. Hancock held Ivan's hand, and the girl's exquisite face was full of seriousness at this time. Yvonne, no matter what, I will help you. Ivan's heart was warm, and he chuckled, you should become the captain of the 9 Snakes pirates first. It won't be long. Hancock said proudly, Her Majesty Ross said that I will soon be stronger than her. Yvonne did not question it. In the original work, Hancock became the 9 Snakes Emperor at the age of 18. Now she is 16 years old. She does not have the 4 years of waste in the original work. Even without the sweet fruit, she is definitely stronger than her at the same time in the original work. Now that Yvonne has not even learned the armament Haki and observation Haki, she has already mastered the 3 colors of domineering. But in this way, the gold content of Ross, the current 9 Snakes Emperor, is really not high. Get stronger. Don't worry about the future for now, just work hard to get stronger. Yvonne ate the meat in big mouthfuls, and the fire in his heart has never subsided. 1 year later. The time is now 1508 in the sea circle calendar, 12 years before the Straw Hat Boy went out to sea. Night. Sabayati Archipelago. A ship quietly came to the edge of the island. The 2 huge sea snakes carrying the ship stupidly stuck out their tongues and looked around silently. Yvonne. Are you really leaving? On the deck of the ship, Hancock grabbed Ivan's sleeve and begged tearfully, Stay, I can change the laws of 9 Snake Island so that you can stay on 9 Snake Island. The 17-year-old Hancock has officially defeated Ross not long ago and officially became the captain of the 9 Snakes pirates, and is also the emperor of Amazon Lily. The girl was wearing a slim yellow cheongsam with a white cloak on her shoulders, and her ink-like long hair fluttered in the night wind. The world's #1 beauty in the original work has grown up now, and her tearful appearance is enough to make anyone exclaim that I am pitiful. But Yvonne was not moved. He just quietly looked at the Sabayati archipelago at night. I have something I must do. The cooling of the Tianijin star has been completed. If I don't do something, wouldn't it be a waste? Then I'll go with you. Hancock held Ivan's right hand and bound the boy's arm tightly in her arms. The amazing softness instantly confined Ivan's arm. But there was only a trace of helplessness on Ivan's face. It's not that he was not moved, but he had tasted too much. He said, "Don't talk nonsense, you are now the captain of the 9 Snakes Pirates and the Emperor of the 9 Snakes Island. Everyone is waiting for you to lead them forward." "Damn it." Hancock bit her right thumb and asked tentatively, "How about I ask Senior Ross to come back? I told you not to say stupid things." Yvonne tapped her forehead with his left hand. "This is the result of your hard work for many years, don't deny it so easily." Yvonne said, "It shouldn't take long." "Then you must come back soon." Hancock raised her head with tears in her eyes. Even Yvonne couldn't help but feel distressed when he saw her like this. How could Yvonne not know how this girl felt about him? Maybe Hancock herself didn't know that clearly. But it wasn't the right time yet. She wasn't strong enough yet. She couldn't protect the people close to her. "Don't worry." Yvonne rubbed Hancock's head. Both of them were tall. Hancock was over 1.8 meters tall, but Yvonne was almost 2 meters tall, and he could still easily control her. "Yvonne. Are we done saying goodbye?" Rayleigh's voice came from the shore. "The merchant ship I found for you is about to leave." "Coming," Yvonne replied. Then he looked at Hancock. "Well, Hancock, goodbye." The Queen of 9 Snake Island sniffed. She was obviously a grown-up girl, but when she felt wronged, she was no different from when she was a child. "I'll wait for you to come back." Hancock hugged Yvonne tightly. Yvonne froze for a moment, then hugged Hancock in the opposite direction. "Be careful, the government must be tracking us down." "Don't worry." Hancock buried her head in Ivan's arms and said in a muffled voice, "Both New and Senior Ross taught me, and Xiaoqi also reminded me." "That's good." Yvonne nodded gently. In this way, he could leave with peace of mind. Chapter 13. The first half of the Grand Line is called Paradise. Although it is called Paradise, this is only relative to the New World, which has a more severe environment. The magnetic field of the Grand Line is chaotic and the climate is changeable. When sailing in this sea, you have to be on your toes at all times. However, in addition to the threats of these natural conditions, when sailing on the Grand Line, you must also face human threats. Boom 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 boom. Yvonne stood on the deck with interest, watching the ship under his feet and the ship on the sea in the distance passionately bombarding each other. In the distance, it was a pirate ship. They met by chance on the sea and set their sights on the merchant ship under Ivan's feet, so they decisively prepared to approach and attack. Unfortunately, however, the pirates did not expect that although this was a merchant ship, it was an armed merchant ship. There are several layers of gun cabins on the side of the hull, and dozens of heavy artillery are on standby at any time. When the pirate ship approached, the heavy artillery fired in unison. Amid the roar of gunfire, the pirate group could not even get close. Now all they could think about was how to escape. The most powerful guys in the world are all in the Grand Line, but not all those sailing in this sea are strong. At least this group of pirates is by no means strong, and they can't even get close to this ship. Yvonne shook his head somewhat boredly. "It's so boring. I thought there would be an interesting battle, but it turned out to be just a one-sided ravage." At this time, Yvonne was wearing a cloak and a hood to cover his appearance. Now this ship was found by Rayleigh for Yvonne. It departed from the Sabayati archipelago and the final destination was Alabasta. Yvonne did want to go to Alabasta, but he planned to get off the ship halfway. It's a bit embarrassing to say that the primary purpose of his voyage was actually to make money. He had a very crazy plan, and the premise of this plan was money, a lot of money. However, Yvonne was penniless, and his food, clothing, housing, and transportation all depended on the support of the 9 snake pirates and his own hunting. But fortunately, Yvonne was a transmigrator, and he knew where there were a lot of treasures in this world. The first one to bear the brunt is of course Raftel. The legendary secret treasure must contain a huge amount of treasure. But Rayleigh refused to tell Yvonne where Raftel was. So he could only settle for the next best thing. Yvonne recalled carefully and finally determined 2 places where it was easy to get a huge amount of treasure. One is Sky Island. Enel has not yet gone to the Island of Gods. The gold in the ruins of Shandora is still there and has not been taken by the prodigal son to build a ship. That exaggeratedly large golden bell is simply priceless. The second is the Gem Iceberg. The treasure hiding place of the 8 Treasures Navy of the West Sea Flower Country, where the treasures stored by the 8 Treasures Navy for generations are stored, but because King Jiao's head was dented by Garp's punch, he could no longer open the Gem Iceberg, and could only let this huge treasure sleep at the bottom of the ice. But the so-called iceberg is of course not a problem for Ivan, he has the ghost ninja. If both treasures are taken away, his plan can be implemented. Now he is on the way to Gaia Island. The pirate ship that suddenly attacked was finally driven away, and the merchant ship continued to move forward. After about a few days, the ship entered a foggy area. This is the magic triangle, and a large number of ships disappear here every year. However, at this stage, this sea area is still not dangerous in the future. After all, Moria is still staying in the West Sea and has not come here. Of course, even so, this sea area is quite dangerous. Not only is there fog that blocks the vision, but the ocean currents here are also extremely chaotic, and you will deviate from the route if you are not careful. Not to mention, there may be some terrible monsters lurking under the sea area. Even the original author has not revealed what it is until the latest comics. Ivan was inevitably a little nervous, and decided in his heart that if he encountered a monster attack, he would immediately summon the ghost ninja and run away. Fortunately, the attack did not happen until he left the magic triangle. After leaving the magic triangle, the voyage became orderly, and it took about a week. The ship had to dock at an island for supplies. That is, the Water City. Ivan looked at the island that was getting closer and closer. The whole island was in the shape of a cone, divided into several levels from top to bottom. The top layer was a huge fountain, from which water kept gushing out, and then flowing down, bringing vitality and vigor to the whole city. This city was very different from the future Water City. The future mayor, Ispagu, was still a shipwright following Tom the Fishman, and had not yet established the Carrera company that unified the major shipyards. Now the major docks in the Water City were still in a state of self-governance and infighting. Not only that, the island is also plagued by huge tsunamis. Every year, the tsunami will bring great damage to the Water City. Not to mention the problem of island sinking. The coastal areas 100 years ago have now completely sunk to the bottom of the sea. All residents are worried about the future of the island. However, these problems have little impact on outsiders. The ship will stay here for one night, and passengers can get off the ship for sightseeing. Ivan also got off the ship and landed in the Water City. Just to kill time. While strolling in the city, the flow of people on the street suddenly changed, accompanied by people's discussions. Did you hear that? It looks like Tom's sea train is finished on the wreck island. A sea train? The one he'd proposed 10 years ago? When he was on trial for building Roger's ship? Yes, it seems to have been successful. Now we are preparing to conduct the first experiment on the shipwreck island. Did it actually work? I thought Tom was just lying to get away with it. Sea train? How could it be so coincidental to catch up with this time? So Ivan also went to join in the fun. On a platform on the middle level of Water City, he saw a steam train rumbling forward on the sea. The crowd around him instantly boiled. Everyone knew what this car meant. Ivan just watched quietly. Perhaps the whole world will usher in huge changes after the promotion of the sea train. But it was meaningless to Ivan. He was not interested at all. He was even too lazy to talk to the fishman Tom, even though the fishman had the design drawings of Pluto in his hand. Now you can only rely on robbery to get the design drawings, or wait until Tom is in crisis. Anyway, that will be 4 years later. After staying in Water City for one night, the merchant ship set off early the next morning. After passing Water City, passing through the Navy G8 base, and moving forward for another week, Gaia Island is nearby. Ivan got off the ship here. Chapter 14. Gaia Island is a very special island. It is not only special because it is occupied by pirates from all over the world, and is regarded as a bankrupt version of the pirate island Hive. What is more special is that there is actually only half of this island on the sea. The other half was washed up to the sky by the huge sea current 400 years ago, and now it has been left on the White Sea. Because only half is left, neither the record pointer nor the permanent pointer can accurately point to the location of Gaia Island, but it doesn't matter. The record pointer points to the top of Gaia Island, which actually points out the location of Gaia Island in disguise. Merchant ships will certainly not stay on Gaia Island, and even stay far away when passing through the sea area. Although the owner of the merchant ship is very confident, he does not think he can fight against the numerous pirates on Gaia Island. So Ivan can only get off the ship here. In the eyes of the boss, who seemed to be looking at a fool, Ivan asked for a small boat and carried some supplies to the direction of Gaia Island. Although it is possible to reach Gaia Island faster by using the shadow shuttle of the Ghost Ninja, Ivan does not want to enter the shadow space if it is not necessary. In Jackie Chan's adventures, even Xiao, a big figure who is suspected to be the reincarnation of the Saint Seiya, was eroded by the shadow. Yvonne really does not want to gamble on his resistance. Not to mention, with his current physique, he only needs to row a little, and the boat will start to fly on the sea like an arrow from a string. It didn't take too long, and Gaia Island appeared in front of Yvonne on the sea in the distance. It can be seen with the naked eye that there are many ships docked on the coast. If you look closely, you can find that all the masts of these ships are hung with various pirate flags. It's finally here. Yvonne looked up. 10,000 meters above is the location of the Island of God, the location of the Golden Country. But if you want to go up, you can only rely on the ghost ninjas. After all, Yvonne doesn't know when there will be a rushing sea current, and he can't wait here slowly. Whoosh! Suddenly, a sharp whistle came from the air. Yvonne turned his head. A cannonball flew towards his boat. Yvonne narrowed his eyes. The cannonball did not hit Ivan's boat directly, but fell not far from the boat. However, the huge impact force instantly blew up a column of water on the sea surface, and the sea surface instantly became turbulent. The violent waves made Ivan's boat start to bump, as if it would capsize at any time. It was not over yet, and several more cannonballs flew over, also landing around the boat. Between the splashing of water columns, the sea surface was already as turbulent as boiling waves. Oh! Yvonne put down the oars and stood up, looking into the distance. There was a pirate ship on the sea, and the cannonballs came from there. Want to play with me? In the port not far away, a pirate noticed the situation here. Haha, that mad dog Tequila bites again. How pitiful. Another unlucky person who is going to be played to death by him. That guy has a really bad taste, he just likes to watch people capsize and drown. No one thought there was anything wrong, they just teased the man named Takira. In the world of pirates, strength is respected. On the ship on the sea, a strong man was looking at the black-robed man on the boat in the distance with a telescope. Oh! He is not panicking at all? He even stood up. Really, are you looking down on me? Increase the firepower. He waved his hand and shouted, but don't hit that small boat, I want to appreciate the desperate expression of that kid. Then, the cannons fired in unison, and one by one, the shells came towards Ivan's small boat. Yvonne stood on the small boat, motionless, with no intention of dodging at all. All the shells fell around, the sea became more turbulent, and the small boat could capsize at any time. The man on the boat in the distance, the pirate called Takira, frowned. Isn't that guy afraid at all? Not at all. Suddenly, Takira noticed a pair of eyes under the black robe. A bright red, like tears of blood. Ugh! Takira suddenly put down the telescope, his chest heaving. Captain? The pirates were a little surprised. That bastard! Takira's forehead was sweating. How could that look be so terrifying? It was as if he was really looking at him. Takira gritted his teeth, feeling humiliated. He picked up the telescope again. Fire with all your strength. Sink that ship. He decided that this time, he would blow that guy up directly. But Takira saw that the guy on the boat had his hand on the hilt of the knife at his waist. Ha ha ha. Knife. Takira laughed, does that guy want to chop off all the shells? His words were silent. Yvonne drew his sword. Secret, dragon flash. The wind seemed to gather on Ivan's scabbard. The next moment, the long sword was unsheathed, white light flashed, and the wind whistled. A crack appeared on the sea surface in an instant, and it spread to the end of the sight in an instant. The young sword Saint Ashina was obsessed with repeating the days of life and death battles, just slashing and killing, thinking hard every day about how to swing the sword and how to kill people. When he turned around, he had already swung a sword that even tore the air. This is the secret, dragon flash. With a mortal body, swing out a vacuum wave that cuts off everything. Ugh! On the pirate ship, Takira's eyes suddenly widened. Strange? Why is his vision leaning to both sides? His question was not answered, and the endless darkness had swallowed him. But his crew knew what happened. Captain! The pirates screamed. The white wind flashed and then the captain was split in two. His body was torn vertically and blood exploded. The pirates' screams lasted only a moment, and the ship shook violently. With the captain's body as the dividing line, the ship was also split into two and broke directly. Hey! The pirates watching the show on the shore were stunned for a moment. The ship was cut in half. They could see it more clearly. A long and narrow white curtain suddenly stretched across the sea. The pirate ship was cut in two in an instant. This was that guy doing this. Is he a person with special abilities? No. It's a slash. It's the swordsman's flying slash. That guy is an incredible swordsman. This is not over yet. Ivan casually slashed a few more times. The white vacuum wave whistled, and the pirate ship in the distance was directly turned into pieces and fell into the sea. The port was silent. The pirates only felt their lips dry and their tongues parched. Is this really something that humans can do? What kind of monster is that kid? When Ivan landed, he faced an empty port. All the pirates were scared away by Ivan. But not everyone ran away. It's really amazing. A man squatting on the street drinking said to Ivan with a smile, that exaggerated move, is it really swordsmanship? Ivan glanced at the man. He looked to be about 30 years old. The most distinctive feature was his peculiar face shape, with high and outward cheekbones, making his whole face look like a diamond. Why would a man like you come to such a lowly place? The man was very curious. After all, the pirates gathered here were just a bunch of scum, and there was not even a single outstanding guy. So, he naturally made a guess, are they here for the Golden Country that Rolando mentioned? What a coincidence! I came here for the Golden Country, too. The man smiled and said, I come here every once in a while and dive nearby to look for the sunken Golden Country, but I never find anything. Perhaps, it's really just a ridiculous legend. Ivan looked at the man carefully again. He raised his eyebrows, what's your name? Name? The man was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, it's not a secret that cannot be told. This is also the reason why I am looking for the Golden Country. My name is Mont Blanc Couric. I am the descendant of Mont Blanc Rolando, the big talker from 400 years ago. It's really you. Ivan smiled and said, since we are not under the sea, why don't we change direction? Change direction? Couric was stunned for a moment. Ivan raised his right hand, raised his index finger, and pointed it directly at the sky. Couric's eyes widened. Chapter 15. Mont Blanc Rolando, an explorer 400 years ago, claimed that he found a ruin full of gold during his adventure, which he called the Golden Country. But when the king who supported his voyage excitedly sent a ship there, all he found was a deserted island. Not to mention the Golden Country, there was not even a living person. So Rolando was executed, and he was also dubbed the liar by the world. And this Mont Blanc Couric is Rolando's descendant, and he has been searching for the Golden Country tirelessly. He is not sure whether the Golden Country exists, but he still decides to bet his whole life on it. He is a little silly, and he is a standard pirate-like man. Once he is determined about something, he will never change it. You mean, in the sky? Couric's face suddenly changed. This was not his first time to Gaia Island. He had also dived and explored the deep sea nearby many times, but he still could not find any trace of Shandora. It was impossible to say that he was not discouraged at all. Even though Kulik was not ready to give up, he would come to Gaia Island every once in a while. Until now, his body was shaking violently. The legend of the Sky Island. Couric asked tremblingly, is it true? The legend of the Sky Island has been circulating in the waters near Gaia Island. Occasionally, strange shadows would appear in the sky, as if they were residents living in the sky. Occasionally, some inexplicable things would fall from the sky, such as animal corpses, human corpses, and even ships. But this legend has always been just a legend. After all, people cannot fly and cannot go to the unattainable sky to verify it. Why is it not true? Ivan asked in return, since Fishman Island can be 10,000 meters below the sea surface, why can't people live 10,000 meters above the sea surface? Yes. Why? Kulik was very excited. Why can't there be people in heaven? Why can't the Golden City be in heaven? There are always powerful ocean currents near Gaia Island. Could it be that the Golden City was washed up to the sky by the ocean currents? Rolando, maybe you are not lying. Kulik looked at Ivan, are you going to the sky? Ivan took off the hood on his head. There was no need to cover it up here. As long as the government could link him to the Sabayati archipelago, it would be fine. Well, he nodded gently, do you want to join us? Of course. Of course you can. Couric was a little surprised. He was such a young boy. It was totally inconsistent with such terrifying strength. However, he was surprised and answered loudly. But this is not an easy task. The ocean current is extremely powerful. To catch it and fly into the sky, we need a strong enough ship and an outstanding navigator. There is no need to go through so much trouble. Ivan said calmly, don't resist. 2 ghost ninjas were summoned from the shadows under his feet. Are they capable people? Kulik watched a ninja approach and grabbed his shoulder. Then, the ninja led the 2 into the shadows. Kulik suddenly felt his eyes go dark, and he was brought to a dark space. Here, he suddenly felt a creepy fear in his heart, as if there was some terrifying monster in this void, ready to devour him at any time. But Kulik said nothing. Since he chose to believe this boy, he would not have any doubts. Let's go up. Ivan said, find an island above. The ghost ninja instantly took the 2 of them up. There is no gravity in the shadow space, so flying up is easy. What a magical ability! Kulik couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He became more curious about this young man. The speed of the ghost ninja was quite good. After more than 10 minutes, Ivan and the others emerged from a shadow. Is this the Sky Island? As soon as he came out of the shadows, Kulik couldn't wait to look around. White. No matter which direction he looked, he saw white. White houses, white roofs, white roads. Town. Kulik exclaimed, we are in a town? A town in the sky. Ivan looked around and they seemed to be in an alley. He jumped lightly and landed on the roof of a house next to him. Looking into the distance, everything he saw was white. This is a white city. If Ivan didn't know that this should be a sky island, he would really think this is Marijoa. Kulik climbed onto the roof and looked around like Ivan. Oh! It's all white. The roof is soft too. It looks like clouds. He was as surprised as a child. Ivan frowned slightly. Is this Angel Island? Yeah, ha ha ha. Looks like there are 2 interesting guys in my kingdom. A weird laugh came from one side. Ivan turned his head and saw a shirtless man on the top of a building nearby looking down at the 2 of them. Oh, we've come to the wrong place. Ivan thought. When did they appear? Kulik was so frightened that he broke out in a cold sweat. He didn't realize it at all. Are they residents of the sky? But they look no different from the people on the sea. Let me ask you. Ivan looked at the man who didn't have a thunder drum on his back and gold earrings on his long ears. Where is Angel Island? Mortal, are you questioning this god? The man's narrow eyes narrowed again. Although he was still smiling, a dangerous aura had inevitably spread. Ivan did not answer, but just looked up. No wonder he said just now that no matter which direction you look, it's all white, even above it is all white. There are clouds above, or in other words, there is a sea of clouds. The ghost ninja is still not smart enough, and it's also Ivan's fault that he didn't make it clear, and he hasn't reached his destination yet. Above Gaia Island, there are actually 2 layers of sea of clouds. One is the White Sea 7,000 meters above the sea, and the other is the White Sea 3,000 meters above. Angel Island and God's Island are both on the White Sea. And now I am probably on the White Sea, on a sky island in the White Sea. As for the name of this sky island. Ivan lowered his head and looked at the man. It's called Bika. The ninjas have gone astray. Ha ha ha. How dare you ignore God? The man laughed wantonly, and the azure lightning flashed on his right hand until his entire right hand turned into lightning. Then I have to punish you. Kulik's face changed instantly. Power user. Be careful, brother. This guy, could it be a natural power user? Of course he is a natural power user, Enel with the thunder fruit, who has not yet destroyed his hometown of Bika, and has not yet gone to the realm of God to become the god of Sky Island. Ivan just calmly put his hand on the hilt of the knife at his waist. Enel laughed mockingly, a mere blade wants to touch God? God's punishment. With a flick of his right hand, a thick column of lightning has already slammed towards Ivan. But Ivan jumped up at this time and took the initiative to meet the thunder. Crack! The thunder swallowed him up in an instant. Idiot! Are you actively accepting God's punishment? Enel laughed. But at this moment, a cold voice suddenly came from the lightning. Thunder and lightning return. Chapter 16. Enel is 25 years old this year. But he had reached the peak of his life several years ago. Since he ate a fruit, his life was destined to be completely unchanged. After using the overwhelming power of the thunder fruit to easily defeat the previous ruler of Bika Island, Enel became the god who ruled the island. All those who dared to resist him were electrocuted into charcoal by him, and all those who dared to say bad things about him were blasted into slag by the thunder from the sky. This high and mighty god uses the electromagnetic waves of the thunder fruit and the unique heart network of Sky Island to monitor the entire island. Today should have been an ordinary and boring day, but Enel suddenly heard a voice that should not have appeared in Bika. It was two outsiders. Enel decided to find some fun almost instantly. After all, Bika is too small. There is only this small island with a population of only tens of thousands. Enel has long been tired of this place. It is too small. Only their hometown in the legend, the infinite land on the moon, is worthy of him as a god, right? Enel thought so intoxicatedly. But he couldn't think of a way to go back. He could only stay in this sea of clouds and waste time. Therefore, whenever there was fun, Enel always cherished it. He would patiently play with the opponent to death. But this time, the prey was a little ignorant of life and death, and rushed into the lightning. Obviously, he deliberately missed the target just to enjoy their frightened expressions. This thought only lasted for a second before the sound of the thunder and lightning sounded. Thunder and lightning return. The lightning twisted in an instant. Ivan bathed in thunder and suddenly swung his sword in the lightning. The thunder danced with his blade. Enel's eyes narrowed like a light bulb, his mouth opened unbelievably, and snot flew out of his nostrils. Hey! This guy, what is he doing? This funny expression lasted for a moment, and Ivan swung his sword, and the brilliant lightning was reflected back, directly swallowing Enel. Ivan landed lightly on the eaves. Without touching the ground, he could perform thunder and lightning return. This is a move to bounce back thunder. Originally, it must have a divine karma, that is, Sekiro with the power of dragon's heritage to perform it. Of course, Ivan does not have the power of dragon's heritage, but he knows the thunder of Ba. Using thunder and lightning to protect himself, he can still bounce back thunder. What on earth did you do? A gloomy voice came from the front. Enel stood there unscathed. He could transform into thunder, so of course he couldn't be hurt by his own thunder. But his expression was so dark that water could be squeezed out of it. He couldn't understand why Ivan could bounce back his thunder. As you can see, it's just a swing of the knife. Ivan said calmly, can you please not block the road? I'm in a hurry. Hey, brother, don't irritate this guy, okay? Kurik looked at Enel with a dark face cautiously. If I'm not mistaken, this guy is the user of the natural thunder fruit. The strongest natural fruit is also the top devil fruit. The strongest? Natural? Ivan wanted to laugh. Which version is this? In the current version, fruits that cannot be used with domineering power are not considered very strong. Unless your fruit is as powerful as Yuda's. I don't want to waste time either. Ivan slowly sheathed his knife. If Rayleigh were here, he would know that this was the moment to be most alert. But this guy doesn't seem to be willing to give way. You've angered God and you still want to leave. Enel sneered, mortal, you are too presumptuous. God. Ivan smiled, really? That's a coincidence. Go to hell. You foolish mortal. Enel's hands turned into lightning at the same time and aimed at Ivan. 60 million volts thunder dragon. Lightning splashed. The ferocious thunder dragon roared towards Ivan. You really can't learn your lesson. Ivan breathed indifferently. The golden lightning jumped on his body, and his right hand pressing on the hilt turned black. At the same time, the black substance spread downwards, covering the hilt and the blade in the scabbard at the same time. Swish! The golden lightning instantly crashed into the thunder dragon. The blue thunder dragon twisted in an instant, but instead entangled with the golden lightning and went towards Enelu. The breath of thunder strengthened the body and enhanced the speed. The giant ninja thrust burst at high speed in an instant. The ashen cross slash merged into one, turning into a sword draw. The three merged into one, and its name was Flash. Enel only felt a golden light flashing before his eyes, and the next second, his body flew up. What? What? He was still confused while flying in the air. What happened? What knocked him away? He fell heavily to the ground, and only then did he feel the air. A tearing pain came from the left chest to the right abdomen. A hideous wound slanted through Enel's chest, waist, and abdomen, even the sternum and ribs were cut off, and part of the internal organs were also cut by the blade. Fortunately, the high temperature brought by the thunder directly carbonized the wound, and the blood did not spurt out. How is it possible? Enel's eyes widened. How could he be injured? How could he be injured by a mere blade? He is a natural ability user. At this time, he met a pair of eyes. Yvonne looked down at the man lying on the ground and said lightly, God, do you want to continue? It was the first time that Enel saw such a cold look. This kid wanted to kill him. Hey! No! You can't kill me! Enel struggled to squirm backwards, in shock and anger. How can this god die here? This god still has to go to the infinite land. How can this god die here? How ugly! Yvonne sighed. That's right, Enel in the original work was a bit of a bully. After discovering that his attack was ineffective against Luffy, he was directly scared and showed an emoticon. However, this guy can also be used. Yvonne suddenly had an interesting idea. He immediately said in a cold voice, are guys like you worthy of calling yourself gods? Only the masters of the world government, the celestial dragons, are qualified to be called gods in the world. What? Even though he was seriously injured and his life and death were controlled by others, Enel was also instantly furious. There is only one god. That is me. Those guys who overstepped their authority deserve to die. Tisk, go to hell and be your god. Yvonne grabbed Enelus's shoulders, twisted his body, and threw him out with all his strength. Enelus turned into a meteor in the sky and flew out of the island. Then, he began to fall. Finished. Enelus's face turned pale, and he fell into the White Sea. Although it was a sea of clouds, the White Sea was made up of sea clouds. This kind of cloud has the same function as the ocean, and the ability user cannot move after falling into it. Enel began to fall. Yvonne looked at the direction where Enel flew out and smiled slightly. He believed that with Enel's character, if he didn't fall into the sea and drown, he would definitely go to war with the government without hesitation. Although it was not much, it would be nice to cause some trouble to the government. As for him drowning, let him drown, he was not a good thing anyway. Let's go. He looked up at the sky and said to Kulik, it's still higher up. Oh. Kulik looked at Yvonne. What kind of monster is this boy? Chapter 17. After entering the shadow space again, Yi Wengsun was a little smarter. He sent some ninjas out in advance and asked them to return to the world first to look for islands with forests above to prevent going to the wrong place again. So, when he came out of the shadows again, he appeared in a lush forest. He was definitely not wrong this time. Even if he searched the entire White Sea and the White Sea, there was only one island with soil and forests. One of the two islands of the God's realm that appeared in the original work, the half of Gaia Island that was washed up in the sky, the people of Angel Island called it the Island of God. Because there is no land in the sky, all islands are made up of special island clouds, and the crops that can be grown are extremely limited. So, when this island flew into the sky, the people of Angel Island were ecstatic. They called this place the Island of God, and designated it as the domain of God. It was a restricted area for ordinary people, and only crops were allowed to be grown, and no one else was allowed to land at all. Is this the place? Kurik looked around in ecstasy. Is this where the golden country of Shandora exists? Yvonne jumped lightly and jumped onto the treetop. He looked around and soon saw a huge vine that went straight to the sky from the depths of the dense forest in the distance. That thing grew from the depths of the sea of clouds and happened to penetrate the Island of God when it fell, leaving the island in the White Sea. If I remember correctly, the golden country is on a certain layer of the vine, hidden by the clouds. No one has discovered it for 400 years until Enel came over. Let's go. Yvonne landed on the ground and went in the direction of the vines. Kulik quickly followed him. He was very curious. Young man, have you been here before? Otherwise, how would he know where the golden country is? Yvonne did not answer, but looked in a certain direction of the dense forest in surprise. There was a rustling sound in the forest. Soon, a figure rushed out from behind a bush. He was wearing shoes similar to skates, with a pair of small wings on his back, naked upper body, and tattoos on his body, looking quite wild. As soon as he rushed out, he saw Yvonne and the other man, and the man's expression changed instantly. Don't try to stop us. Angel Islanders. Shandians? The descendants of the Gaia Islanders who were washed into the sky 400 years ago. At that time, the Gaia Islanders were driven out of the Island of God by the Angel Islanders. In the past 400 years, they have never stopped fighting and have always wanted to take back their homeland. They are called Shandians. While Yvonne was thinking, the man had already pointed his right hand at Yvonne, and there was a shell inlaid on his palm. Ivan's eyes glared slightly, and the invisible momentum instantly penetrated the Shandian. The next second, the wild man's eyes rolled back and he fell down softly. Hey! Kulik blinked. What happened? Was he sick? Why did he suddenly fall into a coma? Let's go. Ivan didn't care and continued walking forward. Oh! Kulik glanced at the man lying on the ground. He suddenly thought of something and quickly chased after Ivan. Young man, is there still anyone alive on this island? Kurik's tone gradually became excited. The descendants of the great warrior Kalgara, are those people from Gaia Island still living on this island? The great warrior Kalgara was the leader of the people of Gaia Island 400 years ago. He and Rolando, who came from afar, became close friends after a fight. But later, he drove Rolando away because of a misunderstanding. After Rolando set sail, Kalgara knew that he had wronged Rolando, but when he caught up with him, it was too late. He could only shout at the departing ship, telling Rolando that Gaia Island would always welcome his arrival, and he would keep ringing the golden bell to guide Rolando. Rolando also replied that sooner or later, he would come back. It's just a pity that after that, the people of Gaia Island and half of the people of Gaia Island they were washed up into the sky together. The two never met again. But some people still remembered the agreement they made. Rolando's descendant Kurik remembered it. The Shandians, the descendants of Kalgara, also remembered it. Kurik spent his whole life searching for the Golden Country. For 400 years, Shandia has wanted to take back their homeland and ring the golden bell again. Before Ivan could answer, several more people rushed over from the direction they were heading. These were men wearing white uniforms and berets on their heads, holding spears and long swords in their hands. They looked like organized soldiers. When they saw Ivan and the others, they shouted angrily, "Invaders from Shandia! Get out of our sanctuary! That's enough!" Ivan frowned. The Shandians thought they were Angel Icelanders. The Angel Icelanders thought they were Shandians. Get out of the way! As Ivan stepped forward, the soldiers blocking the road had already fainted with foam at the mouth, just like the Shandian warriors just now. Kurik had no idea what was going on. He didn't know who the Angel Icelanders were, nor did he know who the Shandians were. He could only follow Ivan blankly and continue forward. As they walked forward, they encountered several waves of Angel Island interceptions on the road, all of which were knocked down by Ivan's conqueror Haki. After a year of hard training, Ivan has successfully awakened his armament Haki and observation Haki, of which his armament Haki has been able to harden. Although more advanced techniques are still a long way off, it is enough for the time being. In addition, the practice of Conqueror Haki has also begun to bear fruit, and he has been able to freely control and release targets. Although it is still a long way from the Conqueror Haki of red hair, which is always in a state of activation and can shock the real substance, it is not bad either, and belongs to the level of mainstream Conqueror Haki holders. It's already very close. After knocking down another group of Angel Island soldiers, Ivan looked up. Even the treetops could no longer block the appearance of the huge vines. They were almost there. "Brother, haven't you noticed that more and more people are trying to stop us?" Kulik was a little worried. "Are we being targeted? Isn't that natural?" Ivan didn't care. He used his observation Haki to take a quick look and knew that there were people chasing not only in front but also behind. There was no doubt that they were involved in a war between the Shandians and the Angel Icelanders. But it didn't matter, just move forward. A little further ahead, the forest had come to an end, and not far ahead was the huge vine that penetrated the island from bottom to top and spread to the depths of the sky. However, in front of the huge vine, a group of white guys were waiting in full battle array. "Stop right here! Shandians!" The speaker was a man riding on a Pegasus. Well, it was an ugly Pegasus, pink, with various spots on its body. The man on the horse was holding a lance and wearing a full set of armor, so his appearance could not be seen at all. He just pointed the gun at Ivan and the others. Then he whispered in surprise, "What's going on? They don't look like Shandians." At the same time, behind Ivan and the others, a series of rustling sounds were heard in the forest. "Go! Warriors of Shandia! Go and take back our homeland!" Someone in the forest shouted. Chapter 18. In the forest behind, a group of Shandia warriors led by a guy dressed as a leader rushed out of the forest, shouting slogans, "Gan fool! It's time to return our home to us! Gan! Fool," the name of the guy riding on Pegasus. Hey, buddy, things don't look good. Kulik looked at the neatly arrayed Angel Icelanders in front of him, then looked back at the tough-looking Shandia people. He approached Ivan and whispered, "We seem to be involved in a war. And both sides regard us as enemies." Ivan was unmoved. Battle. The Island of Gods has become an inseparable part of the lives of the people of Angel Island. Ganfor responded loudly to the Shandians, "Even if it was our ancestors' fault, we can no longer give up this island." Ivan raised his eyebrows. He could tell that this god of the Sky Island was not a staunch advocate of war. Wait. Kurik frowned, and suddenly understood something. So, this island was snatched from the ancestors of the Shandians by the Angel Icelanders. He turned around in astonishment and looked at the Shandians. Aren't these people dressed similar to what Rolando said? Could it be that? Then let's fight. The man named Bater, the leader of the Shandian guerrillas, raised his arms and shouted, "The Shandian people's determination to regain their homeland has never faded in the past 400 years. Since you refuse to leave, let us drive you away with swords and guns." Ganfor took a deep breath. He knew that they were not right in this matter. But now, they have owned this island for 400 years, how can they give it up easily? Then let's fight. Ganfowl raised his lance and shouted, "God's guards of Angel Island! Fight to protect our homeland! Fight! Fight! Fight!" the white troops shouted in unison. "Destroy them!" Batel pointed his spear at Ganfor. "Oh!" The Shandia warriors also shouted loudly. At this time. "Wait a minute! Please wait a minute!" Kurik suddenly raised his hands and shouted, "Can I say something?" "Angel Icelanders, what else is there to say now?" Bater said angrily. "Angel Icelanders? Are you kidding me, Bartle?" Ganfol immediately said, "They are not from Angel Island, aren't they sent by Shandia?" The two realized at the same time that something was wrong. Both groups looked at Ivan and the others in surprise. Could it be an outsider? "Don't get me wrong, we come from down there, from the sea." Kulik said quickly, "We are neither Angel Icelanders nor Shandians." "From the sea? People from Qinghai?" Ganfol nodded gently. "Although Sky Island is difficult to reach, it is not without people from Qinghai. The western summit in the west is the road connecting Sky Island and Qinghai. He also received a group of people from Qinghai in those days. They called themselves the Roger Pirates. What does this have to do with us?" Among the Shandia people, a kid in his teens said angrily, "Since you are not from Angel Island, then stand aside. Are even children of this age going to join the war?" Kulik looked at the child in shock. If they were really the people of Gaia Island back then, what kind of arduous battles have they experienced in the past 400 years? "No. I have one more thing to say." Kulik said seriously. He looked at Ivan, "Young man, can I tell you? Our purpose. Whatever you want." Ivan didn't care. He just came to find gold. As long as he found gold, nothing else mattered. This young man came to Sky Island to look for the Golden City, the ruins of Shandora. Kurik said loudly, "I shamelessly asked him to take me up with him." "The Golden Country?" Ganfor frowned. Where can there be a golden country on the Island of Gods? But on the other side, Batel's performance was completely opposite to his. This iron-blooded warrior was shocked at this time. "Shandora? You said Shandora? How do you know this name? How does he know this name?" "They. Golden Country, that was the secret guarded by the Gaia people for generations 400 years ago. Except for the Gaia people themselves, only Rolando and his crew knew about it." Seeing his shocked look, Ivan sighed in his heart that Rolando had done something unfair. The secret of the Gaia people was easily leaked by him. If it weren't for the surging ocean current that washed Gaia Island into the sky, who knows what will happen when the king's people arrive at Gaia Island. The legend of the Golden Country has been circulating on the sea for 400 years. Many people know about it. Kurik said, "I also came for the Golden Country, but I didn't come for the treasure. I only have one question for you now." His body was shaking a little. He took a deep breath, as if to muster up his courage. He was a little scared. But Kurik still asked loudly, "My name is Mont Blanc Kurik. Are you the descendants of the great warrior Kalgara? Are you the descendants of the people of Gaia Island?" The Shandians were all shocked and speechless. After a few seconds, Bartle said with a trembling voice, "Kalgara and Mont Blanc." Beside him, the 10-year-old boy had already lost control and rushed towards Kulik. The boy rushed to Kulik, his eyes widened to the limit with tears flashing, and he shouted with all his might, "My name is Vapa. I am the descendant of the great warrior Kalgara from 400 years ago. We are the descendants of the people of Gaia Island. Mont Blanc Kurik. Are you a descendant of Rolando? My name is Mont Blanc Kurik. My ancestor's name is Mont Blanc Rolando." Tears suddenly flowed out of Kurik's eyes uncontrollably. They are still alive. They still remember Rolando. Rolando is not a liar. He just suddenly couldn't find his friends. A strong feeling of emotion instantly made Kurik burst into tears. "Rolando has been looking for you. I have been looking for you too." Ugh! The boy named Vapa burst into tears instantly, his body shaking violently. "Are you the descendants of Rolando?" Bartel's eyes also filled with tears. 400 years have passed, and you still haven't forgotten us." No one believed Rolando's story. All he saw when he returned to Gaia was a deserted island. Kulik carefully took the crying boy off his body, sat up and said loudly, "But I'm still alive." "You're still alive. There's a moment to fulfill the promise." He took a deep breath, "Sorry for the long wait. My friend." The Shandia people burst into tears instantly. 400 years of hard work seemed to have meaning in an instant. Before his death, Kalgara told the Gaia people to take back Gaia Island and ring the golden bell again to guide their friends. And now, 400 years later, their friends still haven't forgotten them. Really? Kulik covered his face, but his tears and snot could not be stopped at all, but his mouth corners were raised high, romantic. Ivan's mouth corners were raised. An agreement is naturally nothing big. But there is a family, a tribe, who have insisted on this agreement for 400 years and have never forgotten it without knowing whether each other still exists. Now, after 400 years, the descendants of the two people who did not fulfill the agreement at that time meet again. Isn't this romantic enough? It's just that the Angel Island people on the side are a little confused. Why are these people still crying? Ganfor was also a little at a loss. Should we launch an attack now? Wouldn't it be a bit inappropriate? Fortunately, Ivan rescued him at this time. Ganfowl, right. Ivan looked at the Sky Knight and said, "My name is Ivan. I heard from Rayleigh that you..." "Rayleigh?" Ganfowl was stunned. "Do you know Rayleigh from Roger's pirate group?" Kulik, who was still immersed in the emotion, turned his head in surprise. Did he hear it wrong? Roger Pirates, and Rayleigh? Chapter 19. I haven't seen them for many years. Ganfowl looked quite emotional. Are Roger and the others all right? Ivan replied, Roger died 10 years ago, and the Roger Pirates have long been disbanded. Rayleigh is alive and well, and has now retired. It's really the Roger Pirates. Kurik was no longer able to be moved at this moment. He was extremely shocked. He was really talking about the Roger Pirates. The unprecedented pirate group that conquered the Grand Line and circled the world, the Pirate King's pirate group. Has the Pirate King ever been to Sky Island? Does he actually know the leader of this Angel Island? Is he a descendant or successor of the Roger Pirates? No wonder he knows where the Gaia Island that was sent to the sky is, and no wonder he knows where the Golden Country is. Is Roger dead? Ganfowl felt a little sorry. When Roger's pirate group came, he still had a good chat with that man. You and Rayleigh are old friends, so I don't want to make things difficult for you, just get out of the way. Ivan said calmly, my goal is only the gold in the Golden Country, whether you fight or make peace has nothing to do with me. Don't even think about it. Shandia's warrior, Batel, stepped forward while wiping his tears, and he said seriously, we are very grateful that you brought Kurik up, but the Golden Country is a secret treasure guarded by the Gaja people for generations. He glanced at Kurik and said, my friend, please stand aside for now. When we win, we will host a banquet to entertain you. Then, we will have a drink and talk happily again. Ganfor was not to be outdone. He looked at Ivan and said, young man, you should also stand aside. This war has nothing to do with you. Kurik felt a little headache. What a helpless situation. Do we have to fight? Can't we coexist peacefully? Of course we have to fight. We can only fight. 400 years of hatred, countless soldiers died because of each other, is there any reason to stop? It really shouldn't be wasted. Ivan shook his head gently, then let's all fall down. The invisible momentum instantly spread throughout the whole place, and both the Angel Icelanders and the Shandia people were attacked indiscriminately. The result was that in an instant, the two houses fell down like wheat being cut. Ugh! Ganfowl and Bartle were the only ones who could barely maintain consciousness. I'll spare your lives as a reward for letting me see a good show. Yvonne thought so and walked towards the vines. Wait! What on earth did you do? Bartle, who was weak and could only stand up shakily, shouted at Ivan's back. All his tribesmen fell down at this moment. Don't worry, he just fainted. Kurik said quickly. He was really afraid that the Shandians would anger the young Yvonne. If he was provoked to draw his sword, there would be a river of blood. When Yvonne passed by Ganfurl, the man also raised his head with difficulty. Young man, what do you want to do? I've already said that it's just for the gold. Yvonne replied indifferently, without stopping for a moment, and continued to move forward. Soon, he had arrived at the bottom of the huge vine. Walking up along the spiral vine, it was like a mountain road. Wait for me. Brother Yvonne. Kulik chased after him. He was carrying two people on his shoulders, Ganfowler and Bartle. These two guys want to catch up no matter what. Kurik said cautiously, is it okay? It doesn't matter. Yvonne answered. As long as it doesn't block his way, it's fine. Following the bean vines, he soon came to a platform made of island clouds. It was quite wide and almost endless. There were several more layers of such platforms. Yvonne glanced at the platform and found that there were many ruins on it. This should be the place, right? Yvonne muttered to himself. His observation haki swept through. Observation haki is generally the power of sensing aura, and it does not have the ability to sense non-living things. However, there are often differences in individual observation haki, and observation haki masters are good at different things. Fujitora is good at listening to sounds, Luffy is good at sensing emotions, and Rayleigh can easily judge the strength of auras. Ivan's observation haki does not have these abilities. What he is good at is scanning. It scans everything around him like a radar, including both living and non-living things. Soon Yvonne determined the direction. He raised his left hand, and the golden yellow lightning was wrapped around it, and with a casual push forward, countless lightning bolts instantly jumped away. The moment the lightning landed on the cloud, the island cloud began to evaporate. Even if it was a stone-like cloud, it was still just a cloud. In just a few breaths, Yvonne had cleared a huge hole in front of him. The scene below was immediately visible. This is a relic. It has been abandoned for who knows how many years, with vines crisscrossing and extremely dilapidated. The most eye-catching thing is the pyramid-like building in the center of the ruins, and the gold that is dotted on these houses and is still shining and reflecting light. Shandora. Batel staggered forward. Is it Shandora? It's still here. He wanted to cry. The ruins that the ancestors once guarded still exist here. Kulik was also full of amazement. This is the golden country that Rolando mentioned. He didn't lie, it's really here. There really is something. Ganfor had a complicated expression. They had never discovered this place in 400 years. Moreover, is this the place that Shandia guarded back then? Ganfor felt guilty again. The only one who did not sigh was Yvonne. He just calmly summoned a bunch of black shadow ninjas, collect all the gold. Shandora is a golden city, dotted with gold everywhere, the amount is so huge that it is outrageous. If you want to take it away, you can only rely on the ghost ninja. The ninjas jumped into the ruins in an instant and began to collect gold. The method was very simple, a little violent, directly dismantling various gold decorations, and then stuffing them into the shadow space. Batel wanted to say something when he saw this scene, but he shut up in the end. Could he still stop it? Hundreds of agile ninjas spent about half an hour to put all the gold into the shadow space. In the original work, Luffy and his crew only took a small bag of gold worth 300 million Baileys. Yvonne simply converted it and found that the gold he collected here was at least 100 billion. But this is not over yet, there is something more precious. Which direction is the golden bell? Yvonne turned around and asked Ganfurl. The coverage of his observation haki is still very limited, after all, he has only awakened for more than half a year. Ganfurl was silent for a moment, raised his hand and pointed to a cloud in the sky. Yvonne nodded slightly, ready to let the ninja take him there. At this time, Kurik hurriedly said, "Wait, brother Yvonne, can you take me to see it? I also want to see the golden bell that Rolando talked about back then." Batel was hesitant to speak. How could he not want to go? Ivan simply called out a few ninjas and dragged everyone into the shadow world. When they returned to the real world again, they were already above the higher cloud. Ivan finally saw the golden bell. Huge, beautiful. The golden bell, dozens of meters high, sat quietly here. There were still a lot of vines wrapped around it, and a pillar was broken in the collision 400 years ago, but it still did not damage its amazing beauty. The lamp of Shandora! The lamp of Shandora! Bater burst into tears. The thing he had been chasing for 400 years was now right in front of him. Thank you. Thank you. Even though Ivan took away all of Shandora's gold, Batel couldn't help but thank Ivan sincerely. Ivan didn't care and walked to the base of the golden bell, where a historical text was inlaid, recording the whereabouts of the Sea King, and there was a message from Roger next to it. But I couldn't understand it. Although I also have the Conqueror's Haki, I haven't awakened the ability to listen to the voices of all things. Doesn't this mean that I'm not the chosen one? Ivan thought. It doesn't matter. He looked up at the golden bell. No, it's too big, and the ninjas can't take it away as a whole. Unless it is cut off. But it seems too pity to destroy such a magnificent treasure like this. Ivan looked at the broken pillar on the side. Is this enough? The huge golden pillar that is dozens of meters high is worth at least tens of billions of baileys. Cut it and it can be easily taken away. That's it. Ivan drew his sword. When he was about to chop the pillar, Ganfol looked at the extremely excited Batel with a complicated expression. Is this what your ancestors have been guarding? Batel turned around instantly and said viciously, it is because of you that we have to leave our homeland. Ganfor lowered his eyes. 400 years have passed, and they have been fighting for 400 years. How long will this battle continue? How many more people will die? It was the mistake of our ancestors, so are they going to keep making this mistake? Ivan had already jumped into the air, unsheathed his sword, and surrounded by thunder. He called out, secret flying vortex cloud. As he fell, the sword flashed. The golden pillar was unable to resist at all, and was easily chopped into pieces by Ivan. That's about it. Ivan put away his sword and placed it on the base of the golden bell, summoning the ninjas to start moving the broken gold. Brother Ivan! Kulik suddenly shouted. Ivan looked at him. Can you ring it? Kurik pointed at the golden bell and shouted, ring the lamp of Shandora. Ivan curled his lips, said nothing, and just jumped up. Fairy peak kick. To the golden bell, Ivan was as small as an ant, but when Ivan kicked the bell, the huge golden bell began to swing violently, and the bell body collided with the pendulum. Then, bang! A startling sound suddenly rang out. It was extremely clear, like the sound of a clear spring. Bater's body stiffened instantly. Below, the Shandia warriors who woke up from Ivan's domineering color all looked up. What is that? When the people of Angel Island exclaimed, the people of Shandia were already in tears. Ha 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 ha! This is the lamp of Shandora. Kurik laughed so hard that tears streamed down his face. Rolando! Did you hear that? It's so beautiful. Ganfor sighed silently. Have we kept the Shandians away from such treasures for 400 years? For the Shandians who have kept a promise for 400 years, they certainly won't be an evil tribe, right? At this moment, he finally made up his mind. He walked up to Bartle. Bartle, do you want to talk? Talk. Chapter 20. On the edge of the forest of the Island of Gods, on a cleared area. Ivan was grilling fish. It was a huge sea fish caught from the White Sea. It was still very big in the water, but soon became shriveled after being out of the water. This should be a common feature of the fish living in the Sea of Clouds. Although the properties are no different from seawater, the buoyancy is definitely much smaller than that of real seawater, so the creatures living in it must also evolve to the corresponding form. They often have a large number of air sacs in their bodies, and they inhale a lot of air to expand their bodies and increase buoyancy. Ivan brought a lot of seasonings. Although it was just a simple grilled fish, it was also delicious after he made it. Hiss! A green snake lay quietly on the side, seemingly dazed by the fragrance, sticking out its tongue constantly, saliva dripping from its mouth. You are here, brother Ivan. Kurik walked out of the forest and looked at the big snake lying on the side with some amazement. It's amazing that you can even tame this guy. Ah! It's a monster that has lived on this island for 400 years. The ancestor Rolando once mentioned that the people of Gaia Island were offering a big snake, and he killed the snake, which was also a testimony of his friendship with Kalgara. And this snake is the descendant of that snake, and has lived on this island for 500 years. It doesn't mean that the longer you live, the more powerful you will be. Yvonne said lightly. This is not an online novel about cultivating immortals. The longer you survive, the more powerful you will be. After taking away the pillar next to the golden bell, Yvonne was going to find something to eat on the island, but this guy ran out and attacked him. Yvonne frightened it with a domineering look. By the way, the ghost ninja found a lot of gold in his stomach. Kurik sat opposite Yvonne, across the campfire. He sighed and said, Ganfar and Batel have started negotiations about getting the Shandians back to the Island of Gods. Yvonne didn't say anything, but felt that the fish was almost cooked, so he started to eat with big mouthfuls. The big snake next to him was about to cry with greed, and it hummed softly. Ganfowl is a good man. Kurik said to himself. He also sympathizes with the Shandians and proposed to share the island with them. But Batel's reaction was very intense. Although he was willing to talk, he absolutely did not agree with Ganfar's proposal. The Shandians wanted to take back the island completely. There's no progress at all. But this is only natural. Kulik laughed helplessly. After being driven out of their homeland for 400 years, they sacrificed their lives to regain their homeland, and countless people died and were injured in the past 400 years. How could it end inexplicably like this? Yvonne said nothing, but just ate the fish quietly. A several-meter-long fish quickly disappeared in his mouth. I've decided to stay here for now. Kurik said, although I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to mediate this war, and I don't even think there's anything wrong with the Shandians, but at least I think I can stay and witness it all. Yvonne still didn't speak. He had almost finished eating the fish. Electric arcs jumped on his hands, evaporating all the oil stains. He stood up. I'm leaving. Where's Ganfowler? Are you in such a hurry? Kulik was a little surprised, then he smiled helplessly. Yes, a man like you must have things he must do. Ganfurl is in the shrine on the giant vines. He should be arguing with Bater right now, right? Yvonne jumped directly onto the head of the big snake and stepped on it. Go to the vines. The big snake's forehead was sweating. It didn't dare to resist at all. Its huge body accelerated and went directly in the direction of the vines. There was no need to communicate with it. It was enough to use the domineering color to force it to go in a certain direction. Not long after, it reached the vines again. The big snake went up and Yvonne quickly arrived at the shrine. Yvonne found Ganfurl, and he was indeed still negotiating angrily with Bater. Yvonne directly explained his purpose. The top of the west is in the west, right? Ivan's next destination is the West Sea, which is on the other side of the Red Earth continent, so he decided to go to the upside-down mountain and head to the West Sea from there. The Great Route is a voyage from west to east, and the top of the west is in the west. Going back to Qinghai from there should be able to reach the front of the paradise directly, which can save a lot of time. That's right. Ganfowl nodded blankly. Give me a ship and a guide, I want to go to the top of the west. Yvonne set off without any stop. The fight between the Angel Icelanders and the Shandians may continue for a long time. This time, there is no Enel to bring the crisis of destruction to both of them, so that they are forced to unite. But what does it matter? Yvonne doesn't care at all. A small boat carrying him and another guide sent by Ganfol set off towards the top of the west. The top of the west is the route connecting the sky and the sea, located at the westernmost end of the White Ocean. First return to the White Sea through the Gate of Heaven, and then sail all the way west. The area of the White Sea is not small, and it took Yvonne more than a week to finally see the passage called the Top of the West. It is a huge archway with solemn and sacred angel carvings on both sides of the door. Behind the door is a winding white road that extends from the edge of the White Sea to the Qinghai below. No wonder it is said that even if you walk to the top of the west, only 1 in 10 people can reach the sky. Is this road for ships? Lord Yvonne. The Angel Islander who brought Yvonne here said respectfully, I can only take you here. Yvonne narrowed his eyes. He didn't plan to rush down from here directly by boat. After all, he was not a helmsman at all. If he rushed down like this, he would definitely run out of the road and fall directly. Therefore, Yvonne summoned some ghost ninjas and asked them to go down and find a place to stay on the sea, while he stayed here and waited temporarily. He thought he would have to wait for a while, but unexpectedly, the ninjas came back soon and they found a place to stay on the sea. Yvonne didn't hesitate at all and asked the ninjas to take him there. In the shadow space, a pile of gold was transported by the ghost ninjas and followed behind Yvonne. The ghost ninjas couldn't find a sword on the boat. If they just threw the gold in the shadow space, it would be lost. So Yvonne could only summon some ninjas to continue to follow him with the gold. With his current physical strength, this burden is still nothing. When Yvonne came out of the shadows again, what caught his eyes were the masts, decks, waves, and a group of smoky guys. Who are you? Why did you show up from our ship? You happen to be on a pirate ship. Yvonne tilted his head. Later. Yvonne stood at the bow with a permanent pointer in his hand. This was bought by Torelli in the Sabayati archipelago. Before heading to the West Sea, he wanted to go to another place. Target, Alabasta. Yes. Behind him, a group of bruised pirates responded weakly. Chapter 21. As Yvonne began his new journey, Gaia Island. Great God Enel, how do you like it? The bar owner was sweating on his forehead, and he carefully bent his body to ask the man in front of him. The man was naked from the waist up, with thick bandages wrapped around his body. The most eye-catching thing was his long earlobes, which hung directly on his chest. At this time, the man was eating an apple pie with relish. Yeah, ha ha ha. Food made from apples? Not bad. Man, Enel, who was thrown down from the Sky Island by Yvonne, smiled with satisfaction. Your cooking skills are much better than this god's chef. You can be this god's personal chef from now on. The bar owner smiled awkwardly. Can he say that he really doesn't have any cooking skills, and it's just that you, a god, have never eaten any good food? Is this Qinghai? Enel said to himself, Sky Island is indeed much more vast. He was thrown down from the sky by Yvonne before, and he really thought he was finished when he fell into the White Sea. But he soon passed through the White Sea and fell towards the sea below. Enel was so scared that he almost died on the spot. Fortunately, he realized that if he didn't do something, he would really be finished. So he desperately activated the elementalization, turned into lightning and rushed to the nearby Gaia Island. After recovering a little bit of his strength, Enel wanted to find someone to treat him. After all, his injuries were too serious. He was still a little cautious, fearing that Qinghai would be full of strong people like that golden guy. But it turned out that he was worrying too much. At least Enel confirmed that even now, he could easily knock down all the guys on this island with one hand. So naturally, Enel resumed his godly behavior. After eating and drinking, Enel began to think about the next move. Should I go back? No, of course not. That bastard might not have left yet. Wouldn't it be troublesome if I bump into him again? My thunder is useless to him, but he can hurt my elemental self. That's right. Enel suddenly remembered something. He asked the bar owner, do you know the celestial dragons? The owner was stunned, then nodded subconsciously. Of course, speaking of the celestial dragons, they are the world's nobles. They are gods that cannot be offended. God. A fierce light flashed in Enel's eyes. That guy really didn't lie to him. There really is a guy in Qinghai who dares to overstep his authority and calls himself a god. It seems that there is something to do next. Where are those celestial dragons? Enel asked. The boss was a little confused, and then a bad feeling emerged in his heart. What does this Enel god want to do? Alabasta is a big country located in the first half of the Grand Line. The land area exceeds 10 million square kilometers, which is one of the largest in the world, but most of the land is desert and the resources are poor. The most commendable thing is its long history. The time when this country was founded is unknown, but the Palace of Alabasta was completed 4,000 years ago. But for Alabasta, the long history is of no use. The harsh natural environment has always shrouded the country in poverty. Most of the land cannot be used at all. Only the land along the Saint Ting River is a developable area. Tens of millions of people are gathered in nearby cities. Alabasta is such a country. And on this day, a ship came to Alabasta and came to the sea outside the port town called Rapeseed Flower. There is nothing special about a ship. Although Alabasta is poor, it has a lot of maritime trade. In other words, it is precisely because of the poor land that it needs to obtain materials through foreign trade. But this ship is different. Pirate ship. The alarm was immediately raised at the port. The reason was that there was a skull flag on the mast of the ship on the sea, dancing in the wind. Sir! Sir! We have arrived at Alabasta. On the deck of the pirate ship, the sturdy pirate captain bowed and nodded. As a pirate with a bounty of 36 million berries and a user of the bear-like form of the animal type bear-like fruit, Bill the Bear believes that the first half of the Grand Line is not as scary as the legend says. At least he has been in this sea area for more than a year and has not encountered any serious danger. Should we march into the New World next? Bill thought so. Until he met a man who emerged from the shadow of his deck. There are such terrible guys in the world. Bill couldn't imagine that there would be someone in the world who could beat him and all his cotters who used his ability with just a few punches and kicks. He is just like a monster. Fortunately, this great I didn't mean to kill anyone, I just asked them to send him to Alabasta. Bill was very nervous along the way, afraid that he would anger this old man and be hacked to death. Fortunately, they finally arrived at their destination. Ivan stood at the side of the ship, looking at the golden continent not far away. This time he came here to ask some questions to Nefertari Cobra, the king of the kingdom of Alabasta. The Nefertari family is one of the 20 families that founded the world government. They almost went to Marijoa to become a member of the Celestial Dragons. But what's interesting is that the real surname of this family is Nefert D. They are also a member of the D clan. But they almost became Celestial Dragons. The reason why they almost became Celestial Dragons is because of the Queen of Alabasta, Nefertari, 800 years ago D. Lily. This woman disappeared after leaving a mysterious letter. Yim suspected that she was the one who pushed the historical text to scatter. And Yim believed that the reason why Lily did this was recorded in the letter. Yvonne came here for that letter. Uncle. Bill the Bear said with a cautious smile, we're about to reach the shore. Finally, we're sending this plague god away. Bill almost cheered in his heart. Let him go and harm the people of Alabasta. When they were less than 200 or 300 meters away from the port, Yvonne suddenly frowned. He looked up and saw dust flying in the wind. Ha 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 ha. A strange laugh sounded in the wind, the evil pirates are coming, heroes can't just turn a blind eye. Gravel swirled in the sky from nowhere, and finally condensed into the shape of a man on the mast. He had a neatly combed back hair, a scar across his face, a fur coat draped over his shoulders, and of course, the most eye-catching thing was the big golden hook in his left hand. This guy is... Bear Bill's face suddenly changed, 7 warlords of the sea. Crocodile. What a coincidence. Yvonne sighed. Chapter 22. Crocodile looked down at the pirates below. Having stayed in Alabasta for too long, he was used to the peace here. Only the occasional pirate attacks could remind him of the bloody storms of the past. Crocodile cherished every pirate attack, not only because it was the main means to consolidate his identity as the hero of Alabasta, but also because only then would he not forget that he was still a pirate and he should not forget to fight. Goo ha ha ha. Are you ready to die? Crocodile said with some enjoyment. Because it was very close to the port, he could even hear the cheers coming from the port. Damn it! How could I meet this guy by chance? Bill gritted his teeth. This guy is one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Although he has never fought with these legal pirates, before the bounty was cancelled, Crocodile's bounty was 81 million berries. It was more than twice his. Reasonably converted, this guy's strength is at least twice his. He is definitely a strong enemy. However, Bill looked back at his subordinates. At least he has more people on his side, and he looked at Yvonne who remained silent. And this uncle is here. If Crocodile is twice as strong as himself, then this uncle is at least 10 times stronger than himself. Don't think we are afraid of you. Crocodile. Bill instantly gained confidence, his body swelled up, thick hair grew on his body, and in the blink of an eye he had turned into a bear that could stand upright. Get out of here if you know what's good for you. Ha 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 ha. Is that so? Crocodile laughed meaningfully, and he turned directly into sand. Hey! What's wrong with this guy? A pirate exclaimed. A person with special abilities. Watch out! This guy is also a person with special abilities. Bill played the role of captain very well, telling his men not to panic. But the next moment, a hand grabbed his neck. Now you can prove your courage. Crocodile gathered his body in front of Bill and said leisurely. Damn it! Go to hell! Bill roared, and slapped Crocodile's head with his big bear paw, breaking half of his head. Goo ha 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 ha, is that it? But of course, it's meaningless. How is it possible? The next second, Bill's face was distorted, and he barely managed to squeeze out an unbelievable roar from his throat. His entire body shrank in an instant, and he turned into a mummy. Captain! The pirates under his command shouted in shock. Some of them simply raised their guns and fired a barrage of bullets at Crocodile. But it was still meaningless. Crescent-shaped sand dunes. Crocodile's right hand extended a sand blade, and as he swung it, the sand blade slashed horizontally, and all the pirates on the deck were cut in half. But they were not cut in two, and the sand blade seemed to have no physical attack power. However, all the pirates turned into mummies, and the water in their bodies was instantly drained. The mummies fell to the ground one by one. Because of the tenacious vitality shared by the people in this world, they did not die immediately, and then they could only endure the most painful torture. Ivan watched without any reaction. Although these pirates sent him on his way, they did a lot of tricks along the way. If it weren't for the ghost ninja to help monitor, I'm afraid that everyone on the ship would have been killed by Ivan long ago. Aren't you going to do it? Crocodile slowly lit a cigar, blew out a smoke ring, and then looked at Ivan, who was motionless. I'm not a pirate, and I have no intention of fighting you. Ivan said lightly, so, can you pretend you didn't see me? Crocodile didn't even blink, and with a casual stroke, a majestic sand blade flew towards Ivan. Desert Sword. A move that can even split the desert in two. Is there really no way to make peace? Ivan frowned. Then catch him off guard. Lightning instantly splashed on his body. Secret, one heart. Crocodile instantly felt a golden light flashing before his eyes, and his sharp blade of sand was torn apart in an instant, and an even unclear shadow whizzed over. Bang! Crocodile subconsciously raised his left hand, and with a loud bang, a tremendous force slammed into the golden hook in his left hand, causing him to fly backwards like a cannonball. But this is not over yet. Golden arcs of light appeared out of thin air in the air, and Crocodile's body began to bleed at this moment, and countless blood marks appeared on his body. It's not over yet. In the sword light, a golden shadow shot out, and actually caught up with the speed at which he was knocked away, and slashed at Crocodile with a sword. The golden sword light instantly crossed the sky, and Crocodile screamed in pain as he was chopped away like a cannonball. The sword light finally dissipated, and Ivan stood on the top of the cabin of the pirate ship. The sword had returned to the sheath, and he quietly looked at Crocodile, who was knocked away. Haki? Kid. There was blood emerging from the air. Crocodile tried to stabilize his body. He was already in tattered clothes, with countless wounds on his body, and there was a deep wound on his chest that could see the bone. His whole body was stained with blood. Did he use Haki? Ivan thought, otherwise he would have been chopped into pieces by himself just now. The rapid use of the knife in a very short time will inevitably lead to a decrease in the power of the slash, but it is not something that an ordinary flesh and blood body can withstand. That's right, it was still 12 years before Luffy went to sea, and Crocodile was not as weak as he appeared in the original work. Yes, Crocodile will become weaker and weaker. At least when he was at his most high-spirited, he could fight with Barrett. The strong man who is better than the strong man. After 12 years, he can only be beaten by Luffy, who does not block. Physical strength and Haki are things that will become weak if they are not continuously trained. Especially Haki, if you lose the heart of a strong man, it will fall rapidly. But at least, Crocodile can still use Haki now. Crocodile's face is quite gloomy, and he almost turned into sand and flew backwards without hesitation. Fighting on the sea with a powerful swordsman who has mastered Haki, he is not an idiot. Fortunately, the port is behind him. Flash! But brilliant arcs of lightning shot up into the sky, and Ivan shot up from the boat like a ray, catching up with Crocodile in an instant. So fast! This kid's speed is too fast. Crocodile could only grit his teeth and condense his body urgently. Bang! Lightning splashed. In this lightning, Crocodile was struck and flew out again. Blocked. Covered the golden hook with domineering in time. Ivan frowned slightly, and was able to react. Can the observation color still be used? Crocodile crashed into a residential house in the port, causing a scream in an instant. Ivan had already landed lightly on the port at this time, surrounded by people who were fleeing frantically. So, it's really troublesome. Why do you want to cause trouble? Chapter 23. Why not just leave? Ivan thought. There is no benefit in fighting Crocodile. Erosion cycle. But it seems that this guy does not want to give up. With the collapsed house as the center, the ground is drying up and breaking rapidly, and even the houses on the ground are weathering and collapsing. In just a few breaths, the entire port has collapsed and turned into ruins. After a few seconds, let alone ruins, the port has directly turned into a desert. Is this really okay? Yvonne said calmly, many people have been affected by you. Is this what a hero should do? Screams came from all directions almost without stopping. They will understand. A hero is someone who will do anything to destroy evil. In addition to Crocodile's cold words, Yvonne was answered by a madly expanding sandstorm. How long has it been since he was injured? How long has it been since he looked so embarrassed? Crocodile stood in the center of the yellow sand, covered in blood, like a demon. Unwilling, humiliated, angry, all the emotions mixed together have made Crocodile completely crazy. What is a hero in Alabasta? Now he just wants to kill the kid in front of him. There is really no way, so let's chop this guy down first. Yvonne thought calmly. The quicksand terrain is indeed difficult to walk on, but for Yvonne who can gallop on the sea, this is not even an obstacle. However, Crocodile is also very clear about this matter. The most terrifying thing about this lightning kid is his speed. It is already a speed that he can hardly reach on the sea. If it is on land, wouldn't it be even more uncontrollable? He can only be chased by this kid and then chopped into pieces. Therefore, we have to suppress the speed of this kid first. Sandstorm. Crocodile opened his right hand, and the already powerful sandstorm continued to absorb the yellow sand and expand its volume. In just a blink of an eye, a huge storm that stretched from sky to earth had formed, like a pillar connecting the sky and the earth. The port, which had already suffered heavy damage in Crocodile's erosion cycle, was now even more shaky, and a large number of houses were directly swept up into the sky. Ugh! Yvonne cried out softly, his body was about to be sucked into the storm. No matter how strong he was, he weighed only more than 200 pounds. Even the house was blown up into the sky. Without any leverage, Yvonne could only fly with the wind. In order to avoid this situation, Yvonne shot back like a flash of lightning, instantly opening up a distance of hundreds of meters. Then came 3 huge yellow sand blades. Desert diamond knife. The wind condensed on the hilt of the sword at Ivan's waist, and lightning jumped on it. Secret, dragon flash. The golden lightning vacuum wave instantly tore through the 3 yellow sand blades that were attacking, and even the huge storm was cut into a narrow crack. Even inside the storm, Crocodile's body was directly cut in half by Yvonne. Then, the next second, Crocodile's body recovered, and the crack in the storm was fleeting. Before comprehending the flowing armed color, moves such as flying slash and vacuum wave could not be added with domineering, and could not cause damage to natural ability users. Moreover, this storm is controlled by Crocodile, and it will never stop unless he is knocked down. At this time, the storm is still expanding. In the original work, Crocodile said that the sandstorm he created would absorb sand and continue to expand, and finally even have the power to swallow a city. Although this port town is not a desert, Crocodile's erosion wheel it will gradually turn into a desert. This is really troublesome. If you get close to this guy, you will definitely be swept into the storm. But if you don't get close to him, you can't kill him. Although natural ability users have retired, they are sometimes disgusting. Yvonne thought. The storm continued to expand. The port city, which was not big to begin with and looked like a small town, has now been swept into it for most of the time. There were screams of crying for parents everywhere. Wherever Yvonne was at this time was no longer safe. Why not burst out at the highest speed and penetrate the storm in one breath like a cannonball? Yvonne took a deep breath, and in an instant countless golden thunders burst out from his body, making him seem as dazzling as a torch, just like a Super Saiyan transformation. He lowered his body, shifted his center of gravity downward, and pressed his right hand on the hilt of the knife. One flash, one heart. Swish! A flash of lightning flashed out, and the air was instantly pierced, even the surface of the howling storm was knocked out with a huge hole. But the storm's range was too large, and Yvonne was instantly trapped in the storm, and his speed inevitably decreased. However, at this moment, the golden storm suddenly rose. Yvonne swung out countless slashes in an instant, and the golden lightning arcs instantly turned the surroundings into a vacuum zone. He maintained such slashes and shot forward. The golden storm penetrated the storm of yellow sand. Unstoppable, unstoppable. Don't even think about it. In the center of the storm, Crocodile sneered, desert sunflower. The already constantly flowing quicksand ground even turned directly into a vortex, swallowing everything on the surface towards the center. Ivan's forward speed instantly slowed down again. But even so, he still flew on the quicksand like a flash of lightning. Desert Diamond Sword. Countless yellow sand blades came towards him. They were torn apart the moment they collided with Ivan's slashing storm, but the number of these attacks was countless. Ivan narrowed his eyes. In the center of the countless yellow sand blades, Crocodile's figure suddenly emerged, and the black golden hook smashed towards Ivan. Did he take the initiative to attack? Ivan was naturally not afraid. At some point, the long sword had returned to the sheath. The storm gathered, and the lightning floated. Secret, Dragon Flash. Although Dragon Flash was previously used to release long-range shock waves, in fact, Dragon Flash is also a 3-stage move like Ishin. The Vacuum Wave is the second stage. The first stage is also a sword slash. A sword slash that is stronger than Ishin. Swish! The golden light instantly illuminated the inside of the dark storm. A long golden arc of light flashed and disappeared. But just this flash made the storm pause, and a huge gap was torn out. Ah! Ha 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 ha! Crocodile was laughing, little devil! Where can you escape to? At the moment of the collision, Ivan stopped. The accumulated sprint potential energy dissipated, and the storm had completely captured him. Ivan was swept directly into the sky. Under ultra-high-speed movement, the ordinary yellow sand was as sharp as a blade, trying to tear Ivan apart. Ivan was covered with a layer of dark domineering, and the whole person became like cast iron. Although it was a waste of full-body armed color, it was still useful in this situation. Ivan thought silently, Crocodile did it on purpose just now, deliberately came up to block himself, and exchanged his injuries for being swallowed by the storm. What a crazy guy, he is not afraid of being killed by his own knife. Do you know what the Desert King is now? Crocodile laughed crazily. This crazy guy, the storm has now expanded to the point where even he can hardly control it. If it continues like this, the whole town will be swallowed up. Ivan kept spinning in the whirlwind, colliding with the rocks of the houses from time to time. Although he had the domineering protection to smash these things easily. But it hurts. And it's also very troublesome. He can't move at all. Not to mention getting close to Crocodile, it's difficult to break free from the storm. Ivan breathed a sigh of relief. Well, use your ultimate move. He said calmly. Susanoo. Chapter 24. Ivan was flying in the storm, but at this moment, blue energy suddenly emerged on the surface of his body, and the energy turned into ribs, suddenly wrapping him up. The domineering aura covering his body has been lifted, and the wind and sand can no longer touch Ivan. Speaking of which, Ivan feels that he and Uchiha Madara are indeed very close. This is the second time that I have extracted his unique skills. Susanoo. The ultimate secret of the Uchiha clan, a move known as the power of God. This is also another reason why Ivan went to sea. As long as you rely on the system to use it, you can replicate the completed Susanoo used by Uchiha Madara to crush the 5 Kage in the 4th Ninja World War. The power is shocking. It is definitely a power that completely surpasses the 4 emperors. But of course, there is no need to do this when dealing with a mere crocodile. It is enough to use your own physical strength to drive this move. After all, Ivan didn't even want to use Susanoo, and relying solely on the sword was enough to defeat Crocodile. After all, if this guy doesn't rely on the sand fruit, his strength in frontal combat may not be comparable to that of a vice admiral, right? He is really weak. But it is true that the sand fruit is very troublesome. So, Ivan can only be more serious. The blue ribs around Ivan began to expand, and on Ivan's right side, they evolved into a skeleton arm. What is that? On the ground, Crocodile looked at Ivan, who was wrapped in blue ribs and arms, and was a little surprised. What kind of devil fruit ability is this kid? But it doesn't matter. No matter what ability you use, can you still break free from this storm? This is indeed the case. Even with the use of Susanoo, Ivan was still blown into the sky by the wind. But there is certainly a reason for creating a skeleton arm. The flying Ivan was caught by the skeleton arm in an instant. It was at this moment, the moment when there was a foothold, thunder splashed in the sky, and a ray of light fell from the sky in an instant. The strong wind was indeed stronger than before, but Ivan kept creating skeleton arms as footholds. After he broke away from Susanoo, the skeleton arm existed for only a few seconds. After all, it was enough. In just a moment, Ivan had penetrated the storm and was close to Crocodile. What a joke! Go to hell! Crocodile roared, waving his hands, and countless yellow sand blades slashed at Ivan. At this time, Ivan didn't even think of drawing his sword. Susanoo, which originally had only ribs, began to grow, and soon it had grown into a half-body skeleton giant with 4 arms, more than 10 meters tall. This is the first stage of Susanoo. It's not an ordinary first stage. The blue giant turned black. Ivan added domineering. The yellow sand blade hit Susanoo, but it didn't even have the ability to hinder Ivan, and it was instantly smashed to pieces on Susanoo. What a joke! Crocodile's face was distorted. What kind of ability is this? At the same time, Susanoo raised his right arm, and the thunder condensed in his palm, turning into a golden lightsaber. Susanoo in the form of a skeleton can already condense some simple weapons, and Ivan added lightning to them. In fact, it's not just lightning. The dark energy is mixed in the lightsaber. Crocodile looked up at the falling skeleton giant, his eyes were bloodshot, and he roared almost crazily, "Desert Greatsword!" His right hand turned into yellow sand, and he swung it hard. A huge sword of yellow sand instantly soared into the sky, and the blade of the yellow sand was pitch black. "Too small," Ivan said indifferently. The lightsaber in the hand of the skeleton giant was raised high, and the next moment it chopped down. Boom! With a brilliant arc of light, the lightsaber chopped on the big sword of Huangsha. Lightning splashed, accompanied by black lightning brought by the conflict of domineering. This collision lasted for a moment. Even with the strengthening of domineering, the loose yellow sand still exploded. Crocodile widened his eyes, and there was already a golden light in front of him. Boom! The earth shook violently, and yellow sand splashed all over the sky. A deep gully spread between the yellow sand and did not heal for a long time. Ivan fell to the ground. The yellow sand under his feet had stopped flowing violently, and he could finally stand firmly. The skeleton Susanoo was still around him, but there was no way, the storm was still going on. The moment he landed, Ivan felt that he was going to be blown away again. The 3 arms of the skeleton giant were heavily inserted into the ground to provide support, and the other arm smashed the ground, splashing yellow sand while grabbing a figure from the ground. "How to stop the storm?" Ivan said, "If this goes on, we won't be able to find anyone to ask for directions." Crocodile, the man held in Susanoo's hand, was in a very miserable state. There was a huge wound from his shoulder to his chest. His entire left shoulder was chopped off, or smashed to pieces, and it looked bloody. "Goo-ha-ha-ha! Are you asking me?" Crocodile lowered his head with some difficulty and looked at Ivan, who was wrapped inside the skeleton giant. "Give up, the sandstorm has expanded to the point that I can't control it. You and I will be buried in this wind together." "Really?" Ivan didn't doubt it. "Since this guy is unreliable, I can only think of a way myself. After all, I can't expect this guy to show me the way, right?" The skeleton giant began to grow at this moment. First, muscles and meridians grew out, and then it was covered with a layer of blue outer clothes. Later, the Karasu Tengu armor was worn on the half-giant. Ivan took a deep breath. He entered the first stage of Susanoo in one breath. The load was really not small. If I remember correctly, Suzuki would go blind after maintaining this stage for a short time. I don't have Sharingan and Chakra, and I rely on physical strength to maintain Susanoo. The consumption of Susanoo at this stage is too great, and I can't maintain it for long. However, the huge consumption is exchanged for powerful strength. The Susanoo covered with armor is holding 2 huge blue long swords in his hands. Each Susanoo has a dedicated weapon. Uchiha Madara's Susanoo weapon is 2 long swords. Ivan raised his head, and Susanoo also raised his head synchronously with his movements. Secret. 2 long swords raised. Dragon flash. Boom. Just swinging the sword can stir up a storm. An extremely magnificent vacuum wave instantly soared into the sky. The next moment, the dark interior of the storm suddenly became bright. This storm that swallowed the sky and the earth was split in the middle. This is not over yet. Armored Susanoo made several consecutive swords, and the storm was completely split apart, no longer as fierce as before. Crocodile widened his eyes. This kind of power. Chapter 25. The storm dissipated, and the whole world has returned to peace. The huge armor Susanoo quickly dissipated. Even though it only lasted for a short period of time, Ivan's forehead was already sweating. The 3rd stage Susanoo is still only suitable as a killer, and cannot be used casually. Ivan thought. The Susanoo dissipated, and Crocodile fell to the ground. He said nothing, just staring at Yvonne. The strength of this kid reminded him of the man he used to be. Douglas Barrett. The same young age, the same strength. But at that time, he could still fight Douglas Barrett, but now, he was ruthlessly crushed by the kid in front of him. He had no power to fight back. What on earth is he doing? What on earth has he been doing in the past few years? Crocodile almost bit his teeth. It has completely turned into a ruin. Yvonne looked around and saw only a piece of yellow sand. The originally prosperous port town had been destroyed by the storm, and the remaining half was also crumbling. The destructive power of natural ability users is no joke. Even a weak ability like the sand fruit can easily do this. Yvonne lowered his head and looked at Crocodile, who was lying on the side. So, what to do with you? Kill me. Crocodile said coldly, do you still expect me to surrender to you? Crocodile's anger and shame made his heart surge. Are you so impatient to die? Yvonne just looked down at the man. How ugly, Crocodile, it seems that Whitebeard has really defeated you completely. Crocodile's eyes suddenly widened, and he tried hard to sit up, but all he could do was barely lift his body a little, and then he fell down again. What do you know, little brat? That kind of unrivaled power. That invincible man. That Whitebeard. Crocodile was suddenly stunned. This was the first time he suddenly realized. Was he so scared? This kid was right, he was indeed completely defeated. Until now, he was still trapped in that failure. Until now, he was still repeating that defeat. Yvonne couldn't see Crocodile's expression. After all, this guy had already become like a bloody man in the previous battle, and his expression was completely invisible. Yvonne just slowly drew his sword, then let me take you there. Wait. However, Crocodile suddenly said, I suddenly don't want to die. Yvonne raised his eyebrows, are you talking to me? I don't care what you think of me. He covered the blade with his sword, ready to cut off the guy's neck. Don't worry, kid. Crocodile was clearly begging for mercy, but he used a very tough tone, just think of it as I owe you a favor. Oh. Yvonne curled his lips. He was so arrogant. If you didn't know, you would think he was begging for mercy. If you still think it's not enough, then I can share with you a secret that can subvert the world. Crocodile thought for a while, do you know Pluto? This country hides the secret of the ancient weapon Pluto. It can be seen that he really doesn't want to die. He is even ready to tell the secret he has been planning for a long time. Yvonne finally put down the knife. Crocodile raised the corner of his mouth, but this is all I know. I don't know what the secret is. I only know that it is related to the royal family of Alabasta, the Nefertari family. Yvonne said, it's really hard for me to imagine that you would actually beg for mercy. Such a proud man would actually bow his head. Yvonne originally thought that he would greet death with a smile. Begging for mercy. Crocodile looked at him with disdain, isn't this a deal? Deal? Yvonne chuckled. He's really tough. Since you owe me a favor, please help me do something. I just happen to be doing something very interesting next time, so you can help me. What's the matter? Crocodile asked subconsciously. Yvonne leaned down and whispered to Crocodile. Are you crazy? Crocodile's tone suddenly became sharp, do you know what this means? Madman. This kid is definitely a lunatic. This is something that ordinary people can't think of. Do you want to regret it? Yvonne didn't care and asked calmly. Crocodile gritted his teeth, and then he finally nodded with difficulty, of course I will keep my word. Since I've agreed, then what's wrong with me going crazy with you? Excellent. Yvonne nodded gently and sheathed his knife. He would not let Rayleigh, Shakira and Hancock help him because he did not want to affect them. But a scum like Crocodile naturally did not care. That's all for today. Yvonne looked around, ready to ask someone for directions, but there was nothing but a desert all around. Even those who survived the storm had already run away to who knows where. He could only look down at Crocodile, do you know how to get to Albina? Ha ha ha, are you so impatient? Crocodile naturally thought that Yvonne was going to ask the Nefertari family about Hades, then take me with you. Yvonne lowered his head and looked at this guy. Do you think anyone dares to stay nearby? Crocodile said as a matter of course, and I also need treatment. Let's go to the nearest town, where there are moving crabs. We can easily cross the desert by riding them. Otherwise, How long are you going to run? The area of Alabasta is a full 10 million square kilometers. How long will it take to reach the destination by walking on your own? Humph. Ivan snorted and casually summoned a ghost ninja to carry Crocodile on his back. This casual move once again made Crocodile look confused. What kind of ability does this kid have? A few days later, outside the city of Albina, the capital of Alabasta, a huge crab came across the desert. Ivan was wearing a thin cloak to block the excess sunlight. Looking at the city built on the high ground in the distance, Ivan was rarely shocked. This is a real ancient city that has existed for more than 4,000 years. We're finally here. There was a cloaked man behind Ivan. It was Crocodile. Are we going directly to the palace next? Of course. Ivan did not hesitate. Later, Ivan walked on the streets of Albina. As expected of an ancient city with an astonishingly long history, the city was filled with an absolutely ancient atmosphere. Any house was probably much older than Ivan's age. However, it was just ancient. Very shabby. As the capital of a big country, Ivan could only describe the city as shabby. There were not many shops on the streets, and pedestrians were even sparse. Business was probably poor and pitiful. It's a country with nothing to offer except its large area and long history. Crocodile walked beside Ivan, joking, but it is also because of its long history that it can hide many secrets. Ivan walked forward, heading towards the palace, and said calmly, "Can you still laugh? It's already notorious in this country. Several days have passed, and the battle that took place in the port town of Rapeseed has spread throughout Alabasta, and even caused a little ripple throughout the world. The hero of Alabasta, Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, destroyed almost half of Rapeseed when fighting the enemy, and the people of Alabasta were instantly furious. Countless people who survived the disaster accused Crocodile of his atrocities. The hero of Alabasta became a sewer rat overnight. There was even public opinion in the newspapers suggesting that the government deprive Crocodile of his status as a 7 warlord of the sea. It is conceivable that the royal family of Alabasta is probably exchanging views with the government at this time. Crocodile's 7 warlords of the sea may really come to an end. It doesn't matter. Crocodile didn't care about it. He didn't even care about Pluto, so what was a mere Shishibukai? Crocodile had found his original intention and recalled why he went to sea in the first place. Pirate King. That was the only goal he should fight for. Humph. Ivan snorted. Soon, the two of them arrived outside the Alabasta palace. Just break in? Crocodile asked. There is no need to start a war. Ivan summoned 2 ninjas.